After Nico, Sterling presented his jewel-encrusted tortoise, a steady stream of other guests brought their gifts to the stage. Leo figured the time was right and had his own gift sent up. He didn't go himself. A very drunk Julianne was clinging to him like a koala, murmuring nonsense, and he couldn't possibly get away. The Miller family gift was painfully ordinary: 2 boxes of tea and a bottle of wine. It was what his father, Charles, had insisted on, and Leo had followed his instructions. It was another clear signal of just how little Charles Miller cared about ingratiating himself with Ethelberg's elite families. But Arthur Cole, the patriarch, showed no displeasure. The fact that the Millers had sent anyone at all was a surprise to him. After the gift presentation, Ethan Cole was making the rounds with his father and grandfather when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Leo. "Leo, you got a quiet place to crash? My girlfriend's wasted." Ethan scanned the ballroom and finally spotted Leo in a corner, holding Julianne and offering an apologetic smile. Ethan quickly typed back, "Wait there. I'll get Jessica to show you to a guest room." A moment later, Jessica, the student events committee president, made her way toward them. Seeing Julianne slumped against Leo's shoulder with her eyes closed, she whispered, "Is she asleep?" "Pretty much," Leo nodded. "She's a lightweight. 1 drink and she's out. Can you carry her? Or do you need help?" "I've got it," Leo said, shaking his head. He gently slid one arm under her legs and lifted her into his arms. "Lead the way." "Right this way." Jessica guided Leo out a side door, and they took an elevator to the 2nd floor. With all eyes on the Cole family, their quiet departure went unnoticed. Even Damien Sterling didn't see Leo leave. He was deep in a discussion with Audrey Song about next year's city development plan. Audrey had placed a glass in the center of their table. According to the new district blueprints, the low-income housing projects on Market Street are set to become the core of the development. If our families team up, we can secure that land and build a new CBD to rival the one on the east side. Interested? Damien shook his head. "I've been there. It's too densely populated. Development would be a nightmare. Just negotiating the buyouts would take forever. In that time, we could develop a dozen empty lots." "No," Audrey insisted. "That area is crucial to the new district's growth. We can't just hand it over to someone else." As they debated, Serafina Rose sat beside them, unable to get a word in. She rested her chin on her hand, bored, watching the guests mingle and talk business, just like her own boyfriend. Sensing her boredom, Damien gestured for a waiter to bring her a slice of cake. He also grabbed a handful of candies from a bowl on the table and pressed them in her hand. "Eat something," he said softly. "I'll be done soon, then we can have some fun." As he handed her the cake and candy, Serafina was struck by a memory from her childhood. Her father would take her to banquets just like this one, and in the middle of his business dealings, he'd always keep an eye on the food, discreetly placing her favorite dishes in her bowl. She let out a soft laugh. "You really think I'm a little kid, don't you?" Hey. Damien turned to her and grinned, a goofy, unguarded look on his face. Nearby, Audrey Song watched them, a faint smile on her lips and a flicker of envy in her eyes. She was always so busy with work, she never had time to even think about dating. But seeing her younger peer so happily paired off at the gala stirred something in her. She stood up. "All right, let's leave it there for tonight. I won't interrupt you two lovebirds any longer." Serafina quickly stood and took Audrey's hand. "Oh no, Miss Song, please. You two talk. Don't mind me." She wasn't the unreasonable type. She understood they were discussing business. But Audrey just waved her hand dismissively. "Honestly, I'm getting hungry. I'm going to find some food." Damien teased. "Isn't the PDA from me and Serafina enough to fill you up?" Audrey shot him a playful glare. "You little brat. Getting awfully bold with me, aren't you?" "Ha," Damien laughed. "Speaking of which, Audrey, you're not getting any younger. Still single? Haven't met anyone you like? I could set you up." "You will not," she said, pointing a finger at him. "Don't you dare try to play matchmaker for me, or we're going to have a problem." Okay. I wouldn't dare. Just kidding," Damien said, nodding rapidly, looking for all the world like a little brother being put in his place by his older sister. Besides Leo, Audrey Song was probably the only person at the gala who could point a finger at Damien Sterling like that and get away with it. Not even Theodore Song, her father, would dare. Just as they were talking, Ethan approached with his father and grandfather to offer a toast. The moment Ethan's and Damien's eyes met, the air grew thick with awkwardness. When Ethan glanced at Serafina, it became even worse. And in that tense silence, a deafening noise erupted from the gift stage. Boom! Holy shit! Leo's first thought was earthquake. He instinctively threw himself over Julianne, pulling her tight against his chest, ready to shield her with his own body. an almost perfect mirror of her own actions just hours earlier in the garage when the Ferrari had sped toward them. He squeezed his eyes shut, already picturing the ceiling collapsing, concrete walls crushing him while Julianne remained safe in his embrace. But after a long moment, nothing else happened. Confused, Leo slowly opened his eyes. Julianne was still sleeping peacefully, undisturbed by the blast. The room was untouched. No cracks in the walls, no dust from the ceiling. Not an earthquake? Then what the hell was that? Leo got up and walked out of the room. The ballroom below was pandemonium. Guests were screaming and fleeing toward the exits. Several people lay on the floor near the gift stage, bleeding and crying out in pain. The floor around them was littered with glittering fragments. He noticed they all had one thing in common. They'd been standing close to the gift stage. It took him only a few seconds to connect the dots. One of the gifts was flammable, explosive, and it was almost certainly Damien's jewel-encrusted gilded tortoise. If it were hollow, packed with explosives, the shrapnel from the gems would be as deadly as a grenade. But why would the Sterlings be so petty? To send a hollow, fake gift to the Coles? It made no sense. And he'd seen Edmund Cole struggling to lift the thing. It had to be solid gold. Even packed with explosives, it wouldn't have had that kind of weight. Shaking his head, he dismissed the idea. Looking at the chaos below, then back at the quiet guest room, he made his decision. He'd already broken his promise to his father by getting friendly with the Coles and the songs. This chaos was exactly the kind of mess he was supposed to avoid. Getting involved further was out of the question. He went back into the room, locked the door, and sat on the bed to wait for Julianne to wake up. Someone had hidden a bomb in a gift at Arthur Cole's 80th birthday party. This was a clear message, a direct attack. The Cole family had made a powerful enemy. Wait, this wasn't in the original story. There was no explosion. Down in the ballroom, Damien had thrown his coat over Serafina the instant he heard the blast. Thankfully, they had been standing far from the stage. He, Serafina, Audrey, and the three Coles were all unharmed. Not a single piece of shrapnel had reached them. The guests scattered like birds. But Arthur Cole's commanding presence managed to restore a semblance of order. The injured were not in mortal danger and were rushed to the hospital. The police arrived quickly. The cause was soon identified. Damien's jewel-encrusted tortoise had exploded, sending fragments of gold and gems flying. Because the casing was solid gold, the blast radius was relatively small, causing injuries but no fatalities. When Damien learned his gift had been a bomb, he was stunned. The Coles were equally baffled. They couldn't imagine a motive for Damien to attack them. Luckily, the ballroom had surveillance. Security footage revealed the truth. After the gift ceremony, a group of waiters had been arranging the presents. One of them picked up Damien's gift and briefly disappeared from view for about 10 seconds. When he returned, he was holding an identical box, which he placed in the most prominent position on the stage before leaving with the other waiters. He knew the camera angles perfectly. Not a single clear shot of his face was captured. After watching the video, Edmund Cole summoned every waiter in the estate. Ethan found the real, unexploded tortoise hidden in a blind spot near the stage. Damien was cleared of suspicion, but the waiter who had swapped the gifts was gone. The police found a pile of burned clothes, identified by the metal accessories as the waiter's uniform, in a corner of the estate grounds. Since Leo hadn't been present, he was called in to give a statement. He knew nothing, so his testimony was useless. With no immediate leads, the party was a disaster. But a party, once started, must have an end. The Coles, gritting their teeth, decided to continue. Their staff was remarkably efficient. Within half an hour, the ballroom was restored to its former state. When Leo returned from giving a statement, he found the bed in the guest room empty. His blood ran cold. His first thought was that Julianne had been kidnapped. Oh God, no. What's wrong? Leo spun around. Julianne was standing right in front of him, frowning. The words, "my girlfriend is missing," died in his throat. "You're awake? What are you doing out here?" he asked, rushing forward and grabbing her hand. I'm okay, I think," she said, rubbing her temples. "My head's still a little fuzzy. Was there an explosion downstairs? Am I dreaming?" "You're not dreaming. You're just not sober yet," Leo said, pinching her cheek gently. "Why'd you leave the room?" "I woke up and had to pee. I couldn't find a bathroom, so I wandered around and came back. There's one in the room." "Oh, I didn't know. I was still out of it. I woke up, you were gone, so I went out. Then I heard people talking about an explosion in the ballroom. I thought I was still asleep." Leo frowned. "Who did you hear talking about an explosion?" Julianne pointed down the hallway. "A couple of waitresses who were passing by. They said after the ballroom was cleaned up, the party was going to continue." Leo gave a weary smile. "Technically, it's already restarted." "Then why aren't you there?" Because some little idiot got drunk, and I couldn't leave her sleeping in a guest room all by herself, he said, gently tapping the tip of her nose. Hey, you're the idiot, she shot back, her cheeks flushing. After using the restroom, Julianne decided she was done sleeping. They headed back down to the ballroom together. On the way, she pressed him for details about the explosion, but Leo didn't know much more than she did. The Coles were once again making the rounds, offering a toast and an apology to all the frightened guests. The moment Leo and Julianne appeared, Ethan hurried over with a glass of wine. You two are okay? We're fine. I was upstairs in the guest room, so the explosion didn't affect me. That's good, Ethan said with an apologetic smile. This whole thing, we truly didn't see it coming. Leo asked curiously. I heard someone swap Damien's gift? Replaced solid gold with a hollow one full of explosives. Yeah, that's right. Ethan nodded. We haven't caught the person responsible yet. We think someone was trying to frame Damien and drive a wedge between our families. That's... Leo started to say something, then stopped himself. Ethan looked at him. What is it, Miller? Something on your mind? No, nothing, Leo said, shaking his head. Standing beside him, Julianne remained silent, listening to their conversation. Her mind began to drift, her gaze captured by a waiter opening a bottle of red wine. To open a cork bottle, you needed a corkscrew. Then you had to pour the wine into a decanter and let it breathe for 10 or 15 minutes before it could be served to the distinguished guests. Ms. Hale, are you all right? How are you feeling now that you've sobered up? Should I have someone bring you a hangover cure soup? Julianne was staring so intently at the deep red wine that she didn't hear Ethan speaking to her. It wasn't until Leo nudged her gently that she snapped back to reality. Oh, what? She asked, looking at Ethan confused. Leo whispered in her ear. He asked if you want some hangover soup. Oh, she said quickly, waving her hands. No, thank you. I'm fine now. All right, then. Ethan gave her a warm smile and a nod. Just then, his father called him over. With another apology to Leo, he walked away. Once he was gone, Leo joked. What's with you? Staring at the wine like that. You want another drink already? No. Julianne shook her head. I was just thinking about something. What? I was wondering. Once you pull the cork out of a wine bottle, can you put it back in to save it? Sure, you can recork it, but you have to get a good seal, or it'll lose its flavor. Oh, I don't get it, she said, shaking her head with a charmingly clueless look. Her expression made him laugh. You're definitely not sober yet. You're being way too cute. He picked up a bottle of soda from the table and handed it to her. Here, drink this. It'll help. As she reached for it, she noticed the cap had already been broken. She pulled her hand back. No, thanks. That one's already been opened. Oh, didn't see that. Sorry. Reminded by her, Leo noticed it too. He picked up a new, sealed bottle and handed it to her instead. Julianne stared at the unopened bottle, a thoughtful expression on her face. Across the room, Ethan had rejoined his father and grandfather to toast Damien and Serafina. Arthur Cole held his glass, his face wreathed in smiles. Today's incident was a failure of our security, and it nearly damaged the Sterling family's reputation. I'm truly sorry. I'll drink to that, as my apology. As Arthur went to down the glass, Damien stopped him, placing a hand on his arm. Grandpa Cole, this isn't your fault. If someone made a fake of my gift, it means they were well prepared and they were targeting me. You were just caught in the crossfire. If anything, I should be the one apologizing to you for ruining your 80th birthday. With that, Damien raised his own glass. I'll drink to that. It was his, who even knew how many drink of the day. He was starting to feel dizzy, and Serafina was watching him with concern. Damien, don't. Just as he was about to down the wine, Julianne's voice cut through the air, sharp and loud. There's something wrong with the wine. Her words silenced the room. Every head turned to her. After the explosion, everyone was on edge. At the mention of a problem with the wine, those who had been drinking turned pale with fright. Damien's hand trembled. The glass slipped from his grasp, falling onto the velvet carpet. The wine splashed across his white shirt and stained the intricate pattern of the rug. He stared at Julianne, utterly bewildered. Beside her, Leo looked just as shocked. How do you know the wine is bad? Leo whispered. Julianne shook her head. I'm guessing. What? The entire room stared, dumbfounded by her casual admission. I don't know what's wrong with it, Julianne continued, her voice gaining strength as she raised a hand and pointed. But I am certain that there is something wrong with her. She was pointing at the female waiter who had been standing silently beside Arthur Cole and Damien, holding a silver tray. Shink! The woman didn't hesitate. She dropped the tray, pulled a dagger from her uniform, and lunged straight for Arthur Cole. Arthur Cole's clouded eyes widened in shock as he stumbled back a step. The cold glint of the dagger flashed at his waist, and the shadow of death fell over the old man. Time seemed to freeze. He could see his own terrified face reflected on the blade. Behind him, his son Edmund reached out, intending to pull his father to safety, but in his panic, he accidentally shoved him forward. The dagger closed in. In that split second, Damien's pupils contracted. He had sensed something was wrong the moment Julianne pointed. The waitress's stance was too rigid, her right hand hidden beneath her apron. When the blade appeared, his first instinct was to shield Serafina, but a glance at Arthur's trembling figure made the choice for him. "Stop!" Damien roared, his right hand shooting out like a lightning strike. The sharp blade sliced through his palm, and blood sprayed from between his fingers, a stark red line in the brilliant light. The searing pain made him suck in a breath, but he held the dagger in a death grip. Warm drops spattered across Arthur Cole's suit, blooming into dark red flowers. The waitress's eyes flashed with surprise, then hardened with vicious intent. She tried to yank the knife free, but it wouldn't budge. Damien's hand was a mangled mess of flesh and blood, but it was clamped around the blade like a vice. "Damn it!" she cursed, decisively letting go of the hilt. Her high heels scraped against the floor as she spun to flee. But the opulent ballroom had become a cage. The crystal chandeliers cast a blinding light, and guests screamed as they scrambled out of her way. In the distance, the frantic footsteps of security guards grew louder. Damien staggered back, his right hand still dripping blood. He clenched his jaw, his eyes like daggers fixed on the fleeing figure. "You think you can escape?" His voice was thick with suppressed fury, his hand still gripping the bloody weapon. Serafina was paralyzed with fear. Seeing Damien's injury, tears streamed down her face. "You're bleeding so much. Are you okay? You can't be hurt." Edmund Cole, standing behind his father, finally snapped out of his shock. "Security," he bellowed. "Security, where are you? Get that assassin." Ethan charged, tackling the woman, but she was clearly trained. He couldn't hold her. With a swift backhand elbow to his side, she sent him crumpling to the floor. Jessica immediately rushed to help him. The assassin was now running toward the side exit, straight for Leo and Julianne. Seeing her coming, Leo's first and only thought was to get Julianne out of there. With his girlfriend right next to him, he wasn't about to play hero. He only cared about protecting her. In a surge of adrenaline he didn't know he possessed, he scooped Julianne into his arms and ran. The assassin showed no interest in them. Her only goal was escape. They passed in a blur. She didn't even try to harm them as she bolted for the door. But security was waiting. The moment she was outside, several guards tackled her to the ground, instantly neutralizing her. Edmund Cole stormed after them. Smack! He grabbed her by the collar and slapped her hard across the face. "Talk! Who sent you? Who wants to kill my father?" "Oomph!" The assassin sneered and spit on his suit. "You arrogant prick! You!" Smack! 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 Consumed by rage, Edmund slapped her again and again, finally wrapping his hands around her throat. Others had to pull him off before he regained his senses. The Cole family called the police again. The assassin was taken into custody to await their arrival. The ballroom was in an uproar. After everything that had happened, no one had an appetite. 2 major incidents at one party. Arthur Cole's 80th birthday was truly a mess. The old man was being helped to a chair, flanked by 2 rows of security guards who formed a human wall around him. After his frantic sprint, Leo felt his skill go on cooldown. His whole body ached, especially his back, which felt like he'd pulled something. That sudden burst of strength had come at a cost. Damien and Ethan were immediately taken to the Cole Estate's private clinic to have their wounds treated. Leo, with his twisted back, went along with them, accompanied by Julianne. On the way to the clinic, Julianne chided him. "Couldn't you have just pulled me along? Did you have to carry me? Look at you now, you've hurt your back." "It was an emergency. I wasn't exactly thinking clearly." Leo shrugged, half amused, half exasperated. "Besides, I heard it protecting you. You could at least offer a little sympathy instead of nagging me." "I'm not nagging you." Julianne poked his forehead gently. "I'm worried about you, you big dummy." Leo was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "So how did you know that waitress was trouble?" "That." Julian glanced at the driver, then leaned in and whispered to Leo, "I'll tell you later." "All right." The Cole family doctor was skilled. After examining Leo's back, he performed some acupuncture, and the pain instantly subsided. He told Leo to rest in the patient room while he went to prepare some medicine. Leo lay face down on the bed, not daring to move. "Text Serafina," he told Julianne. "Ask her how Damien is." "Already did. He has a deep cut on his palm. They just finished bandaging it. Ethan has some minor internal bleeding where he was hit, but it's not life-threatening." "Phew." Leo breathed a sigh of relief. "What a birthday party. 2 attacks. Who did the Coles piss off this badly? He muttered, trying to recall his original story. In the book, Damen hadn't come, so there was no jeweled tortoise, no explosion. And the assassination attempt was completely new. Today's events had gone far beyond his expectations. Wait a minute. With all this happening, where was Nico Sterling? He looked up at Julianne. Have you seen Nico? Why wasn't he at the party? Julianne thought for a moment. After he gave his gift, I think he left. Lying on the bed, Leo looked up at Julianne. So, do you think Nico was behind this? To frame his brother and stir up trouble between him and the Coles. Julianne stroked her chin, deep in thought. She felt something was off about the two incidents, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. It's probably not that simple. If Nico wanted to cause a rift, he wouldn't need to have someone poison Arthur Cole, and the explosion doesn't really benefit him. Donovan and Marcus Sterling are already at each other's throats over splitting the family assets. Using a tactic like this to frame Damen would be so obvious, everyone would immediately suspect Nico. It's too stupid. Marcus Sterling would never approve of such a clumsy plan, and he wouldn't let his son do it either. Now that you put it that way, you got a point. Julianne's analysis was spot on. Marcus Sterling was an old fox in the business world. He wouldn't be foolish enough to orchestrate a botched explosion that would only cast suspicion on himself. Leo considered it. What if Nico did it on his own, behind his father's back? A stupid move just to mess with his brother. Unlikely, Julianne said, shaking her head. This looks like a premeditated attack. Think about it. Creating a convincing replica of Damien's custom-made tortoise isn't something you can do overnight. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment plan, and when Damen presented his gift, his surprise looked genuine. Plus, Nico deliberately waited to present his gift, tried to avoid a direct comparison. It's clear he didn't know their gifts would be so similar. Her analysis cleared some of the fog in Leo's head. Help me up, he said, bracing his hands on the bed. He slowly sat up with Julianne's help. Your breakdown just made me realize the key difference between the two attacks. Tell me, the tortoise explosion injured random bystanders. The blast was wide, but not particularly lethal. It wasn't aimed at a specific target. Who got hurt was a matter of chance. But the assassination attempt, whether it was poison or the dagger, had only one target. Arthur Cole. Yes, that's it. Julianne's eyes lit up. The piece that hadn't fit suddenly clicked into place. I knew something felt wrong. That's why. Huh? What do you mean? Leo was lost in her cryptic pronouncements. Julianne shook his arm excitedly. The two incidents happening together. It was a complete coincidence. Ow, 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 easy on the arm. The movement sent a jolt of pain through his back. Oh, sorry, babe. Are you okay? She asked, immediately letting go. I got a little carried away. I'm fine, Leo said, holding his back. He lowered his voice. You mean? Two different groups were responsible for today's attacks. Bingo. Julianne snapped her fingers, her expression confident. I haven't figured out the tortoise explosion yet, but the assassination attempt on Arthur Cole? I have a pretty good idea who was behind that. Leo frowned. Who? Julianne crooked a finger. Come closer. I'll whisper it. Leo leaned his ear toward her. She whispered, someone in the Cole family wanted to kill Arthur Cole. Exclamation point. A chill ran down Leo's spine. The feeling was visceral, terrifying. Ha! Seeing his spooked expression, Julianne couldn't help but laugh. What's so funny? You're such a coward. So is your analysis for real or not? Of course it's real. I put some serious thought into this. We've just been talking for a few minutes, and you've already figured out the mastermind is one of the Coles? How did you manage that? Are you Sherlock Holmes? And how did you know about the poison in the wine? Calm down. Let me explain, Julianne said, holding up her hands. Let's put the explosion aside for now and just focus on the assassination. Let's just assume, that at a major event like Arthur Cole's 80th birthday, surrounded by all his business partners, he successfully poisoned. The killer would surely escape before the poison took effect. And until the killer is found, no one would know the motive, and every single partner at the party would be a suspect. Now let's assume Arthur Cole wasn't poisoned at a party, but at home one day. In that case, the list of prime suspects would shrink down to people inside the Cole family, right? Leo nodded. He felt there might be a flaw in her logic, but he kept listening. So, that's why the mastermind chose to strike at such a public event, Julianne continued, her sharp, beautiful eyes seeming to see right through him. I bet you're wondering what the connection is between the assassin and someone inside the family, and if my theory is a bit of a stretch. She had read his mind. He nodded emphatically. The fact that the assassin could pose as a waiter and sneak in with a weapon and poison means she had inside help. She had an accomplice in that ballroom. Now, setting aside the possibility of a revenge killing, just think, who benefits the most from Arthur Cole's death? The moment she finished, Leo's eyes widened. He swallowed hard and uttered a name. Edmund Cole. As he said the name, the image of Edmund pushing his father toward the assassin's dagger flashed in his mind. At the time, he'd thought it was an accident in the heat of the moment. Now, the thought was chilling. Correct. Julianne snapped her fingers again. If you strip away all the surface details and look at the core of the event, the person who benefits most from Arthur Cole's death is his son. If it wasn't a revenge killing, then it has to be. Her lips curved into a beautiful, knowing smile, her foxy eyes glinting with intelligence, and she left the rest unsaid. Leo was silent for a long moment. Then, how did you know about the poison wine? Ring, ring. Before he could finish, his phone rang. It was Damen. After Leo hung up, his expression grew even stranger. Julianne looked at him and asked directly, "The female assassin is dead, isn't she?" "Yeah, wait, what?" Leo's eyes went wide. "How did you know?" "A guess," Julianne said, crossing her arms. "I was just thinking, if the mastermind really is someone from inside the Cole family, there's no way they'd let that assassin live long enough for the police to interrogate her." "Julianne, I'm starting to think. I don't understand you at all." She tilted her head, her eyes meeting his. "What do you mean? I've always been this smart, you know." Her gaze was so clear, so direct. He had to admit it was true. After falling for her, he'd almost forgotten that in his own novel, Julianne Hale was designed to be a high IQ, villainous supporting character. She only acted soft and innocent around him, her boyfriend, but it didn't mean she was a brainless beauty. "You're right. My girlfriend is the smartest," he said, reaching out to pinch her cheek with a grin. "Ow, that hurts," she said, swatting his hand away. "Anyway, you wanted to know how I guessed the wine was poisoned, right?" She was tired of standing and sat on the edge of his bed. "When I first woke up, I went looking for a bathroom and ran into that female assassin. She was in uniform, on the phone, talking about the explosion and wondering if the party would continue. At the time, I was focused on the explosion part, not the party. Later, when we went downstairs, I saw the waiters decanting fresh wine. I started thinking about the difference between wine that's been allowed to breathe and wine that hasn't. That's when I asked you if you could recork an open bottle. You said yes, and then you handed me that open soda." Leo nodded, silent. Julianne went on. "I paid attention to the wine the other waiters were serving. Under the crystal lights, the decanted wine was a bit more translucent. But the wine poured straight from a new bottle is tighter, the color less clear. The two glasses on that assassin's tray were different. The one for Damen was not translucent. It looked like it had just been poured. The one for Arthur Cole was decanted, and probably had been for a while, because it was a lighter shade than Damien's. I didn't know for sure which glass was poisoned, but her intense interest in whether the party would continue, combined with the two different glasses of wine. That was suspicious enough. Then you handed me that open soda, and it made me think of the water bottle from the sports meet, the one that made Damen twist his ankle. That's why I took a leap and guessed Damien's glass was the problem." Leo shot up. "Wait a minute. What does that water bottle from the sports meet have to do with today?" Julianne didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked, "That bottle of water Damen had, did he ever open it and drink from it?" "No, he just held on to it. Never even touched the cap," Leo said with certainty. He remembered it clearly because he'd asked Damen why he wasn't drinking it, and Damen had said he was saving it for his girlfriend. "Exactly," Julianne said, her gaze sharp. "I was the one who threw that bottle away later. I noticed the seal was broken, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Today, remembering it, I just felt like something was wrong." Leo stood up abruptly in his excitement. "So, you suspect someone was trying to poison Damen? They failed with the water bottle, so they tried again at the Cole's party?" The sudden movement sent a jolt of pain through his back, and he grimaced, sinking back onto the bed. "Yes, exactly." Julianne nodded. "I just didn't expect the assassin's real target to be Arthur Cole. And now the biggest question I have is whether the glass meant for Arthur Cole actually had poison in it or not." Her question was answered soon enough. The police took the assassin's body, and the autopsy results came back quickly. Cause of death: suicide by poison. The same poison was found in her system as was found in the ballroom, in Arthur Cole's untouched glass of wine. The lab detected a massive dose of cyanide in the glass. If Arthur had drunk it, he would have been dead in 5 minutes. No one could have saved him. No other wine at the party tested positive for toxins. When Ethan Cole heard the news from Jessica in his hospital bed, he was stunned speechless. Just 2 weeks ago, in the gym at Ethelberg Royal Academy, he had been explaining to Jessica how cyanide could be used in a murder plot. Now, it had actually happened to him. The situation felt surreal. Damien's injury was just a cut on his hand. After it was bandaged, he was free to move around. And after an afternoon of rest, Leo's back felt much better. The four of them went to visit Ethan in his room. After a few words, they prepared to leave. Seeing them go, Ethan stood up and grabbed Damen and Leo by the arm. If it wasn't for you guys today, I might have never seen my grandfather again. Ethan Cole, will remember this debt. If you ever need anything from me, just say the word. I'd walk through fire for you. Damen clapped him on the shoulder. Don't talk like that. We're friends. Right, Miller? Leo didn't dare respond. He felt himself getting tangled in a complicated web with the Cole family, and he wasn't sure if it was a blessing or a curse. After leaving Ethan's room, Arthur Cole and his son came to apologize to Damen. They had spent the entire afternoon sending off their guests. Now, watching the father and son, Leo felt a subtle tension between them. It might have been his imagination, but he thought Edmund looked afraid. He kept his head down the whole time, his expression unreadable. Arthur Cole said to them, "My young friends, I apologize for the poor hospitality today. I will host a special banquet to thank you for saving my life. If it weren't for you, today would have been my death anniversary. My birthday turned into my death day." How laughable. He let out a cold, self-deprecating laugh. The Coles' internal strife was their own business. Leo and his friends had no interest in getting involved. They said their goodbyes and headed for the underground garage. The moment the elevator doors opened, they came face to face with Nico Sterling and Jason Jiang, who were smoking. The two of them were sitting on the hood of a Ferrari directly opposite the elevator. Seeing the four of them, Jason Jiang jumped to his feet, startled. For a guy who acted like a big shot in his own family's casinos, he was still visibly nervous around heirs like Damen and Leo, who came from even more powerful backgrounds. Nico just froze. He'd taken a drag from his cigarette and forgotten to exhale. He stared blankly at his brother for several seconds before the smoke caught in his throat. Cough, cough, cough. Nico hacked, smoke puffing from his mouth with each cough, looking utterly ridiculous. Damien's face was cold. You come to a party just to hide in the garage and smoke. Are you lecturing me? You have no fucking right to lecture me. Nico kicked the Ferrari's front bumper and stood up, hands in his pockets, a sneer on his face. That diamond-studded turtle of yours was quite a show, wasn't it? Must have felt great slapping me in the face like that. You must have been thrilled. Damen was at a loss for words. He hadn't prepared the gift. He was just following his father's orders. He hadn't even known their gifts would be so similar until Nico had revealed his. It was in a way absurd. After a few seconds of silence, Damen spoke. So that's why you decided to cause a scene at the party? Cause a scene? Nico looked confused. What are you talking about? Damien's face hardened. The tortoise exploding at the party today. That wasn't you. Nico's eyes reddened. He pointed a finger at Damen and yelled, "Don't you dare fucking accuse me. I didn't know anything about that. I left right after I gave my gift." Then why are you still here? Why the fuck I'm still here is none of your goddamn business. You son of a... Before Nico could finish, Damen lunged forward and grabbed him by the collar. Watch your mouth, Damen hissed, his eyes filled with ice. If you don't know how to speak, I don't mind teaching you some manners on behalf of Uncle Marcus. A muscle twitched in Nico's jaw. He sneered. Damen, you, of all people, have no right to lecture me. If Damien's other hand hadn't been wrapped in a bandage, he probably would have slapped Nico across the face. Their eyes locked. For a moment, the air crackled with electricity, the temperature in the garage seeming to drop. The tension was suffocating. Damien's jaw was clenched tight. He slowly released his grip on Nico's collar, then turned without another word and strode away, his back rigid, leaving the others frozen in the charged silence. Leo and the girls quickly followed. With your hand like that, can you drive? Leo asked, looking at Damien's bandage. Damen shook his head. It's fine. It's an automatic. Not a problem. What about you? Is your back okay? My back's fine, Leo said confidently. If you can drive with an injured hand, I can definitely handle it. He opened his car door and slid in. The moment he sat down, a sharp pain shot through his back, but he didn't dare make a sound. He had already made his boast. His pride was on the line. Damen wasn't much better off. He claimed one-handed driving was no problem, but he still needed both hands to maneuver. When his injured hand accidentally brushed against the steering wheel, he nearly cried out in pain. The two cars drove out of the garage, one after the other, just as they had that morning. Once they were on the road, Julianne, as if remembering something, picked up her phone and sent a voice message to Serafina. Serafina, tell your boyfriend to be careful. Nico is full of tricks. He might try to have someone poison Damen. Serafina replied almost immediately. What? No way. Nico wouldn't dare do something like that, would he? Julia messaged back. I'm just warning you. Better safe than sorry. Okay. I'll make sure he watches out for Nico. After their brief chat, Julianne put her phone down. You figured something else out, haven't you? Leo asked immediately. The poison in the wine today was cyanide. I looked it up. When cyanide dissolves in water, it's colorless and odorless. So you suspect the water bottle that girl from the student government gave to Damen was also poisoned? Yes, but she gave us 2 bottles. Why was mine fine? Logically, Nico should hate me too. Poisoning both bottles would have been a safer bet, right? I don't know, Julianne said, shaking her head. Nico is emotionally unstable. I can't figure out how his mind works. Wait, I have another question, Leo said, glancing at her. Why are you so sure the water bottle from last time was poisoned with cyanide? Just because it's colorless and odorless? It's not just that, she said. I suspect Nico was also involved in the assassination attempt on Arthur Cole. Leo frowned. I can understand Edmund Cole, trying to poison his own father to seize power in the family. But what does Nico, who has no connection to any of this, have to gain by helping him? That part we don't know, but I'm sure they're connected. Otherwise, Nico wouldn't have hidden in the garage all afternoon. It's too weird, and it was obvious he was waiting for something. Waiting in the Cole family's garage. Don't you think that's strange? She asked, turning to look at his profile. But he really seemed to not know about the tortoise explosion. Leo wasn't sure if Nico was acting. His initial, shocked reaction when he'd heard about it from Damen didn't seem fake. If it was an act, he deserved an Oscar. Julianne nodded. Exactly. Because his focus wasn't on the explosion, he was genuinely shocked when he heard about it. This is insane. Too insane. This world is completely nuts. I don't understand any of it. Leo shook his head. The information overload from the afternoon was too much for his low-power CPU to handle. If it weren't for his personal Sherlock Holmes sitting next to him, he'd still be completely in the dark. Actually, Julianne said, I just pieced together one more thing. Want to hear it? What? Do you know who was behind the tortoise explosion? Who? Hit. Julianne's playful laugh left Leo feeling like a cat was scratching at the inside of his chest. He was dying of curiosity. Don't keep me in suspense, he urged. Hurry up and tell me, or I won't be able to focus on driving. Hey, okay, you can't do that. I'll tell you, she said, holding up her hands. But you have to drive properly. Just talk. All right. The explosion is actually pretty simple once you break it down. When the tortoise blew up, who was the first person you thought of? Nico Sterling. Exactly. The moment you started suspecting Nico, the plot succeeded. You thought that, and everyone else at the party thought the same thing. The person who orchestrated the explosion wanted you to think it was Nico's side of the family. She paused for breath. The 2 Sterling brothers are fighting over the family inheritance. So, when the older brother, Donovan, finds out that the younger brother, Marcus, is planning to give a gilded tortoise to the Coles, he prepares an even better one to upstage him. The younger brother, hearing about this through the grapevine, deliberately prepares a fake, fills it with explosives, and causes a scene to embarrass his older brother. Do you think my analysis is correct? Leo frowned, thought for a moment, and then shook his head. There's a flaw in that. How would a younger brother know what specific gems the older brother's tortoise was encrusted with? Is his intelligence network that good? And after causing a scene, he'd be the first one suspected. It's a stupid move that puts him on the defensive. Very good, Julianne nodded, which is why this wasn't a secret plot by the younger brother, but an overt conspiracy by the older one. You mean, this was, Leo swallowed hard. This was a setup by Donovan Sterling? Yes. Julianne smiled and patted his head. You're teachable. My baby isn't so dumb after all. Leo shook his head to dislodge her hand. Hey, stop it. Keep going. From Damien's conversation with his brother, you could tell he had no idea their gifts were the same before he presented his. So we can rule him out. That leaves only one person with the means to create a perfect 1:1 replica of the jewel-encrusted tortoise, Donovan Sterling. She paused again. The real tortoise that was swapped out wasn't left behind because the bomber couldn't carry it away. It was left there on purpose to let people know the explosion was a deliberate act. That gets everyone talking, wondering who the Coles might have offended. When they conclude the Coles haven't made any new enemies, their thoughts will inevitably turn to the Sterling family's internal feud. The average observer will suspect Marcus Sterling of trying to sabotage Donovan. That leads back to my initial hypothesis, and Marcus ends up on the back foot. She took a sip from a water bottle in the cup holder. Leo knew she wasn't finished. And then everyone thinks Marcus Sterling intentionally caused trouble at Arthur Cole's 80th birthday. It's a huge sign of disrespect. So if Marcus doesn't respect the Coles, who in the Cole family should they support? Donovan, right? No. Leo shook his head. If even you can see the flaws in the explosion plot, a man who has lived 80 years like Arthur Cole isn't a fool. He'd see right through it. Exactly. Which is why I said it was an overt conspiracy, Julianne said, a smile playing on her lips. A sly old fox like Arthur Cole would naturally guess that Donovan was behind it. But what can he do, even if he knows? Side with Marcus out of spite? He can't. She lowered her voice, mimicking a man's tone. Because this bomb was a warning to him. You can only work with me, Donovan Sterling. If you dare to work with my brother, Marcus, I can send a dozen more bombs to your house, just like today. You have no choice. And look around. Everyone doubts my brother. Everyone thinks you should be on my side. There's no future in choosing him. Only by following me, Donovan Sterling, can you see a bright future. That's... A shiver ran down Leo's spine, the hairs on his arms standing on end. Julianne continued. And do you know why? Even though you did nothing today, I was the one who even warned about the poison. Arthur Cole was so grateful to you. Because compared to the two unstable factors of a Sterling family, he sees our Miller family as a better bet. Right? Right. Julianne nodded with certainty. One birthday party exposed the internal problems of the Cole family. Arthur Cole has no real interest in picking a side. Compared to keeping the Sterlings as a partner, he's clearly more interested in the Miller family as a new potential ally. Leo clicked his tongue. He thought to himself, this is too complicated. Far too complicated. Is this even the same Ethelberg City I remember? I just wrote a standard Mary Sue billionaire romance novel. I didn't write much about family power struggles. How did the story get so damn complex? Dad was right. The waters of these elite families run too deep. I never should have gotten involved in this mess. Hey, don't zone out while you're driving. Oh right. They didn't want to go back to their respective family homes. So, the car pulled up in front of their new house. The moment they were inside, Leo and Julianne collapsed onto the ridiculously expensive, ultra-soft sofa, entering what could only be described as full corpse mode. So tired, Julianne sighed. Me too, Leo mumbled. I'm tired because I spent the whole afternoon analyzing a crime scene. What's your excuse? Driving is tiring. Okay. It's an automatic. What's there to be tired about? Leo sat up. You dare mock me? There's no one else in this house, you know. You can't escape. He lunged for her on the sofa. You pervert, get off. Don't push me, ow, my back. The lunge had twisted his back again. Defeated, he flopped back onto the other side of the sofa. For a split second, Julianne looked just a tiny bit disappointed. Julianne lies. I was not. Stop slandering me. Julianne, Leo said suddenly, staring up at the ceiling. She responded. What's up? How did you get so smart? I don't know. Maybe because I met a lot of people and went through a lot of hardships when I was younger, so I got good at reading people and guessing what they're thinking. And you know me, I don't have much of a sense of security, so I'm very sensitive. I always notice more details than other people. Leo didn't say anything more. He just gently took her hand and placed it on his chest, where her cool palm could feel the steady, vibrant beat of his heart. Lying there on the couch, Leo somehow drifted off to sleep. Julianne, however, wasn't tired. She'd had a nap that afternoon when she was drunk. Seeing him asleep, she didn't disturb him. Instead, she went to the bedroom, grabbed a blanket, and gently draped it over him. The heating was on, and the house was warm, but it was a deeply ingrained belief that you still had to cover up when you slept, especially your stomach, or you'd catch a cold. After covering Leo, Julianne went to the kitchen. The water, gas, and electricity were all connected. The gas stove lit up with a click. It was almost 7 o'clock, time for dinner. She had wanted to cook a meal in their new home, but there was nothing to cook with. The fridge was empty except for 2 half-drunk sodas from when they'd been unpacking yesterday. They had new pots and pans, but no spices, no rice cooker, and no rice. Well, so much for cooking at home. She'd just have to wait for Leo to wake up, so they could go out to eat. She left the kitchen. Leo was still asleep, but she was starting to get hungry. Poking around the living room, she finally found a case of instant ramen in the liquor cabinet. Leo had bought it for Damen, but had mistakenly put their new address for the delivery. He'd said he would get it to Damen when school started back up, so it was still sealed. Now that she was hungry and there was nothing else to eat, she decided to open it. She could always buy Damen a new case. She ripped open the box and pulled out a cup of ramen. It was a flavor she'd never seen before, spicy chili fish ramen. The moment she tore open the sauce packet, the sharp, fragrant scent of chopped chili paste filled the air. She boiled water in the kettle, poured it into the cup, and sealed the lid. Then she sat primly at the dining table, waiting. 3 minutes later, she peeled back the lid, and the aroma of a spicy fish dish flooded the dining room. She eagerly grabbed the fork, twirled up some noodles, blew on them gently, and took a small bite. A mouthful of chili fragrance, spicy with a hint of tartness. It was delicious. The scent of the ramen drifted from the kitchen to the living room. Soon, a sleeping Leo couldn't ignore it. His stomach rumbled, and he woke up. He sat up, dazed, looked at the blanket covering him, then at the light on in the dining room. He stood, slipped on his slippers, and walked over. Julianne looked up from her ramen. "Oh, you're awake already. If I'd known, I wouldn't have made this." Leaning against the doorframe, Leo stretched. "Why didn't you wake me up? Hiding in here, eating ramen by yourself, with the lights off in the living room. I didn't want to wake you. You were sleeping so soundly. I turned off the lights in here on purpose so you could sleep," she said, slurping another mouthful of noodles. "By the way, this ramen is actually really good." "Hey, isn't it the ramen I bought for Damen?" Leo pulled up a chair and sat next to her, leaning in close. "I'm hungry too. Give me a bite." Their cheeks were almost touching. The once empty dining room was suddenly filled with a warm, intimate atmosphere. "No way. Make your own if you want some. This is mine." Julianne shielded the ramen cup with her hand, her protective instincts kicking in. Shamelessly, Leo pressed closer. "I don't want to make my own. I want yours. The one you've been eating is better." "Oh my God, no. You can't have any. Just one bite. Come on, come on." "Ugh, you're so annoying." After a bit of playful wrestling, Julianne finally relented, placing the ramen cup between them. "Fine, you can have some. But only one bite, okay?" Leo didn't move. He just stared at her with wide, pleading eyes. What's with that look? "You feed me. In your dreams. If you don't feed me, I'm going to starve to death." "But haha, then starve. Wow, you cruel, heartless woman. You don't care about me at all." All right, you talk too much." Julianne picked up the fork and twirled a huge clump of noodles. "Here, eat." Leo didn't hold back, slurping the entire forkful into his mouth. Yep, that was the taste. This had been his favorite ramen flavor in college, back when he'd gotten sick of all the standard ones. Besides this spicy fish flavor, he'd also loved the spicy stir-fry hot pot flavor. Back then, you could only buy them online. They didn't sell them in SoCal. It was then he'd learned that ramen flavors were regional. He had sworn he'd never eat instant ramen again after graduating, thinking he'd finally make some real money. But becoming a full-time author had ruined that plan. Now, he not only failed to quit ramen after transmigrating into his own novel, but he'd also successfully corrupted Damien's palate. That one bite brought back a flood of memories. Question: are there any specific foods that hold deep memories for you? The ramen was a normal-sized portion. Julianne had already eaten half of it, and now Leo, with his bottomless pit of mouth, had devoured the rest, leaving only broth and a few stray noodle bits. He wasn't satisfied, so he picked up the cup and drank some of the broth. "You're so mean. You ate all my noodles in one bite, and now you're trying to steal my soup too," Julianne said, lightly punching his shoulder. "Why are you drinking ramen broth? Come on, I'll take you out for a real meal." "No, let me try the soup. It's my first time having this flavor." She snatched the cup from him and took a sip. When she was done, Leo leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Is it good? I just spit in it." She wasn't fooled by his lame joke. "It's delicious," she retorted. "No wonder it's so good. It has your spit in it." Leo was speechless. He felt like he'd try to act like a weirdo, only to run into a real one. They hadn't eaten much at the gala, and were now genuinely hungry. Sharing the ramen broth, you take a sip, I take a sip, hadn't filled them up. They looked at the empty cup, then at each other, and couldn't help but laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Leo asked. "I'm laughing at how silly we are, fighting over a cup of ramen. You're the great Leo Miller. Isn't it embarrassing for you to be stealing my noodles?" "What's so embarrassing about that?" Leo pinched her cheek. "Sometimes it's not what you eat, but the feeling you get. Food always tastes better when you're fighting over it." "I almost believed you. It's true. Haven't you ever heard the saying? It's not what you eat that matters, but who you eat it with." Perhaps the Leo of the past, who had eaten instant ramen until he was sick of it in his tiny apartment, would never have imagined that one day he would enjoy it again, and enjoy sharing a single cup with a girl he loved. It was true. The same food could evoke completely different feelings depending on the time and place. "What are you thinking about?" Julianne asked, nudging him. He'd been sitting in the driver's seat for a while without starting the car. "Huh, oh right." Her prompt broke him out of his reverie. He released the parking brake and put the car in drive. The ramen had been good, but it wasn't enough. They decided to go to a nearby mall for a proper meal, then buy some groceries so they wouldn't be caught empty-handed next time they wanted to cook at home. Besides, with the new year approaching, it was time to stock up. Their new house was right in the city, so the mall was just down the street, one of the perks of urban living. The only downside was finding parking. After circling the garage, Leo finally found a good spot. Inside, the mall was a sea of festive red decorations. In the center of the first floor stood a giant, fluffy cartoon mascot, attracting a crowd of people taking photos. Leo pulled Julianne over for a picture together under the giant figure. Glancing at the New Year's greeting next to it, he had a sudden realization. This mall was also a Miller family property. It wasn't surprising. Their new housing development was just across the street. The fourth floor was lined with restaurants. They didn't spend much time choosing. As they got off the escalator, the first place they saw was River's Catch Hot Pot. A hostess with a bright smile greeted them at the entrance, and they followed her inside. The place was packed, with only one large table left. It felt a bit empty for just the two of them, but that wouldn't be a problem once they ordered a table full of food. Their luck was good. Anyone who came in after them had to wait in line. While ordering, Julian tugged on Leo's sleeve and whispered, "River's Catch has that 30% student discount, right?" "They do, but that's for off-peak hours like after 2 p.m. During dinner rush, it's only a 15% discount for students." Back in college, Leo and his roommates had gone to River's Catch once or twice, always carefully timing their visit to get the bigger discount. But even with 30% off, it was still expensive. They usually opted for cheaper restaurants or food stalls. If they want a hot pot, it was usually an all-you-can-eat place. On an even tighter budget, they would skip food altogether, buy a couple of sodas, rent e-scooters, and just cruise around SoCal, enjoying the free scenery and watching the world go by. That was low-cost entertainment for a couple of broke college guys. Julianne checked the time on her phone. "Damn, we should have waited a couple more hours." Pfft. Leo patted her head, smiling. "You're out to dinner with me. Why are you worried about discounts?" "Of course I'm worried," she said earnestly. "A penny saved is a penny earned. We can't waste a single cent." "Ha ha ha, all right. 15% off is still a good deal," he said, grinning. "You're so good with money. When you inherit the family fortune, you should be in charge of the company's finances." She shook her head vigorously. "No way. I can manage small amounts of money, but a company as big as yours? I wouldn't dare." "It's fine. We have professional teams to manage it. You'll just be the boss's wife, managing the people." "Uh-huh, I see what you're doing. We're not even married yet, and you're already selling me a fantasy." "Ha ha ha. It'll happen sooner or later." "Way later. At least after we graduate college. If you wanted, we could get married this year." "No, thank you," she said, leaning against his shoulder. "I've struggled for so many years. I finally landed a handsome, rich boyfriend. I want to enjoy dating for a couple more years. It's way too early to get married." "Whatever you want," he said, smiling. He ordered over a dozen dishes they both loved. Within 3 minutes, most of the food was on their table. Even in the world of his novel, River's Catch was just as efficient. It was also just as expensive. For 2 people, the hot pot dinner, even with the discount, came out to over $400. Okay, maybe that wasn't so expensive. For the current Leo Miller, $400 was just 4 small tips. Oh God, he thought. I'd become a capitalist. After dinner, they went down to the supermarket on the lower level. They bought kitchen spices, supplies, frozen food that would last, and non-perishables like rice, flour, dried tofu skin, and dried chilies. Before they knew it, their shopping cart was overflowing. "That's enough, right? Let's not buy too much. We can always come back. It's not far from our house. But we haven't bought New Year's supplies yet. Maybe we can wait and bring my mom with us for that." "Okay, sounds good." After leaving the fresh food and condiments aisle, they didn't head straight for the checkout. Instead, Leo grabbed his second shopping cart and led Julianne to the snack section. "Aren't you a little old for snacks?" Julianne teased. Leo grinned. "I'm just worried a certain someone will get hungry at home tonight and decide to bother me." "Oh!" Julianne's eyes widened in surprise. "Are we staying at the new house tonight?" Instead of answering directly, Leo turned the question back on her. "Do you want to stay at the new house?" Julianne arched an eyebrow, playing along. "Do you want me to stay at the new house?" Leo let out an exasperated laugh. "Why are you making this so complicated? You're the one who started it," Julianne said, giving his side a gentle pinch. "You little devil. You're getting trickier by the day, always playing these little games." "Ha ha." Leo caught the hand on his waist. "So, are you going to stay with me at the new house tonight or not?" Julianne pretended to think it over. "Well, seeing as you're offering to buy me snacks, I suppose I can reluctantly agree to spend one night with you. In that case, I'd better buy a lot more to keep you there." "Don't. Just get a few things. We're not there all the time, and if we buy too much, it'll expire. Whatever we don't eat, I'll just keep in my car. Perfect for when you get a craving on the road." "Wow, you've really thought of everything. You know it." "Ha ha, stop copying me." Julianne squeezed his hand hard. The supermarket snack aisle was twice the size of the grocery section, a clear indicator of where the real profits were. Staring at the shelves overflowing with a kaleidoscope of brightly packaged treats, Leo was hit with a wave of nostalgia. As a child, he'd had a beautiful dream. One day, when he was rich, he would buy one of every single snack in the entire supermarket. Of course, that dream had never come true. And as he got older, his craving for junk food had faded. In fact, he couldn't remember the last time he'd even been in a supermarket. The apartment he used to rent was just across the street from a huge superstore, but their prices were outrageous. Unless something was on a deep discount, he never went. He bought everything he could online, meticulously comparing prices across different platforms to find the absolute cheapest deal. For fresh food, he'd use grocery apps and pick up his order the next day. Those were the little tricks Leo had mastered back when he was broke. Now, accustomed to the life of a young master, it was hard to imagine how he'd once survived on a few $100s a month. In Ethelberg City, parking for an hour could cost nearly $10, and in a downtown mall garage, it was $15. Julian gently poked his shoulder. What are you spacing out about now? Huh? Leo snapped back to the present, a small smile on his face. Just thinking about the past. Julian grabbed a bag of potato chips from the shelf and tossed it into the cart. What about it? I was just remembering how my parents never let me buy junk food at the store. He paused. Just one bag? Get more. What if we have friends over and there's nothing to eat? With that, Leo proceeded to grab one of every flavor of chips on the shelf and stuff them into the cart. Good grief, are you really getting every single kind? What's wrong with that? Julianne shook her head. Nothing. You just did something I always wanted to do as a kid, but never had the guts to. Leo laughed. Go wild. Grab whatever you want. It's on me today. Well, Mr. Miller, you're too generous. In that case, this humble little lady won't hold back. Julianne said with a theatrical flourish, patting his shoulder. You know, talking about your childhood reminds me of mine. Don't laugh, but back then, go to supermarket was a luxury. We always bought our groceries at Market Street. The first time I ever went to a real supermarket was because my mom's factory gave her a $100 gift card. That day, she bought me a tube of Pringles, a tiny little can for $5. I treated it like it was gold, letting myself eat only one chip a day. Hearing her story, Leo felt a pang in his chest. He smiled softly, and then they sat for so long they went stale and weren't crispy anymore. Yeah, wait, what? Julian stared at him, bewildered. How did you know what happened next? Are you a mind reader? Caught off guard, Leo froze for a second before recovering. You only ate one a day. Of course they go stale. You don't need to be a psychic to figure that out. He gently tapped her forehead with his finger. Where did all that cleverness from this afternoon go? Did you leave in the car? Why would I need to be clever when I'm alone with you? Julianne said, her voice taking on a whiny, playful tone as she hugged his arm. All the books say that a girl should act a little more helpless around her boyfriend, so he doesn't feel too much pressure. I guess that makes sense. Wait, what book says that? 1001 Tricks to Keep Your Man Wrapped Around Your Finger. Of course. Julianne thought, but she didn't dare say it out loud. She just smiled. Oh, no book. I just made it up. Right. Leo scratched his head, feeling like something was off, but unable to put his finger on it. Whatever he thought. Forget it. It's not like my girlfriend is going to hurt me, right? Oh, you poor naive fool. You're so completely wrapped around her finger and you don't even know it. After filling the second cart to overflowing, they pushed their hauls to the checkout. It took 8 of the supermarket's largest jumbo bags to pack everything. When Leo swiped his card and the total came to $5,000, Julianne's jaw dropped. The receipt that printed out was absurdly long. They wheeled the carts down to the underground parking garage. Thankfully, the Rolls-Royce had a massive trunk. If he'd driven his Koenigsegg today, he would have had to call a TaskRabbit to get everything home. Staring at the trunk, now packed to the brim with all their favorite snacks, both Leo and Julianne felt a strange sense of satisfaction. It was like when your parents refused to buy you that remote control car, and then, as an adult, you bought it for yourself. You might not even play with the toy, but there's a deep fulfillment in finally getting something you were denied in your childhood. For both of them, this was a small way of healing a little piece of their past. Julianne playfully slapped Leo's butt. Let's go. Home time. Leo clutched his rear. Shameless hussy. While driving, something suddenly occurred to Leo. He turned to Julianne. Babe, when you mentioned Market Street, it reminded me of something. The city is planning a new development zone for next year. Oh, Julianne, who had been gazing at the city lights, turned to him. Is my old house part of that development plan? Leo smiled wryly. You sold that house too soon. If you'd waited for the eminent domain buyout, you could have made a lot more. Just my luck, I guess, Julianne said with a careless shrug. But getting my mom away from that scumbag sooner was worth it. I'd rather have less money myself than see him get a huge windfall to waste. Deep down, Julianne believed that seeing Trevor Hale miserable brought her more joy than her own success ever could. It was this uniquely vindictive brand of self-interest that had, in the original novel, driven her to destroy everyone's relationships in a blaze of mutual destruction. Her dark philosophy had been simple. If I'm unhappy, then no one gets to be happy. We can all go down together. I've only got one worthless life to lose, so let the whole world burn. Of course, that was the villain she might have become. The Julianne of today, nurtured by Leo, would never entertain such extreme thoughts. By loving one person, she was slowly learning to tolerate this imperfect world. Ha! Leo chuckled, quickly changing the subject. He'd only meant it as a passing thought, not to dredge up painful memories. Still, the new development zone was a big deal. Leo remembered it clearly from the original plot. He'd written countless words about it. The battle for the development project was the final showdown between the 4 great families and the 2 Sterling brothers, unfolding in 3 stages. Stage 1 was the first year, this year, right after New Year's. The Rose family, the Song family, and Donovan Sterling's faction would form the Ethelberg Apex Investment Group. The Cole family, the Jiang family, and Marcus Sterling would immediately counter by creating the Ethelberg Horizon Development Corp. The 2 conglomerates would burn through cash, fighting for resources and driving up property prices to astronomical heights. The poor families in the low-income housing projects would end up hitting the jackpot. Stage 2, the second year, would see the cash-burning war reach a stalemate. The 4 families would be nearly exhausted. Finally, in Stage 3, the third year, Damian Sterling's engagement to Serafina Rose would give his father, Donovan, a controlling 50% stake in the family enterprise. Marcus Sterling would be cast out, and his 2 allied families would go bankrupt. Donovan would emerge victorious. The city's elite families would be reshuffled, and the story would reach its grand, happy ending. That whole development arc was the central plotline of the latter half of the novel. But that was the book story. The infighting between the 5 families had nothing to do with the Millers, and Leo didn't need to worry about their squabbles. Besides, in his story, he was the protagonist. The car pulled smoothly up to the villa. They made 2 trips to carry everything from the car into the living room, then locked up and closed the main gate. They worked with practiced efficiency. Leo stocked the refrigerator while Julianne organized the spices and kitchen supplies. In no time, they were done, and the house suddenly felt much more lived in. A huge pile of snacks was left by the sofa, but neither of them could be bothered to put it away. So tired. Me too. The moment the airbuds hit the couch, they both went into full-on zombie mode. It was a testament to the fact that you should never buy a couch that's too comfortable, because once you lie down, you never want to get up. A few moments later, Leo started to snore softly. It was already 10 o'clock. Julianne wasn't about to let him fall asleep on the couch again. She pinched his ear and twisted. I was asleep. Sleep my ass. Get up, take a shower, and go to bed. Do you really want to spend the night on the couch? It wouldn't be so bad. This couch is pretty comfy, you know? Leo said, nuzzling against Julianne's soft, fragrant leg. And then, his ear was in for it again. Ow, 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 stop pinching. Wrenched from his slumber, Leo suddenly missed the gentle, caring Julianne from the afternoon who would have just covered him with a blanket. With his ear now bright red, all sleepiness had vanished. He obediently went to his room to grab clothes for a shower. They'd left a few changes of clothes here yesterday. Passing through the living room, he said to Julianne, I'm going to go shower. Okay, she replied, not looking up from her phone, where she was scrolling for inspiration for her stories. Seeing she wasn't paying him any attention, he leaned in with a cheeky grin. Hey, best bud, want to shower together? At last, Julianne looked up, narrowing her eyes at him. Leo thought her expression meant she was angry, so he quickly backtracked. Ahem, just kidding. With that, he bolted for the bathroom. Hey, why are you running so fast? If you want to shower together, let's go. Mwaha. Julianne let out an evil, villainesque laugh and charged into the bathroom after him. Hey, get out. I was just joking. I don't care. I'm taking you seriously now. What are you doing? Don't touch me, you pervert. You have to take your clothes off to shower. Come on, let me see. Wait, which one of us is the girl here? News at 11. A young man, showering in his own home, is accosted by a shameless hussy. Is this a new low for morality or a twisted sign of our times? An hour later, the two of them emerge from the bathroom, faces flushed. What? You asked why their faces were flushed. Obviously, the bath water was too hot. What else could it have been? Don't let your minds wander. Lily, get the hairdryer and help me with my hair. Coming, babe. In the bedroom, the warm yellow light spilled like water, carving out a quiet little world on the king-sized bed. Leo moved silently behind Julianne and sat cross-legged, his every motion gentle. He slowly reached out, his fingers threading through her damp hair as if handling a priceless treasure. He picked up the hairdryer, flicked it on, and a warm current of air instantly enveloped her hair with a soft hum. Julianne sat quietly on the edge of the bed, her eyes closed, long lashes casting faint shadows on her cheeks. A small smile played on her lips as she savored the moment of peace. The water droplets in her hair vaporized under the warm air, rising in a misty cloud around them, carrying the faint, sweet scent of her shampoo and adding a touch of romance to the scene. Leo's focus remained entirely on her hair, constantly adjusting the angle and distance of the hairdryer, terrified of burning her even slightly. The only sound in the room was the low hum of the machine. When Leo dried his own hair, he just blasted on the highest heat and speed for a couple minutes and be done. Since he'd started dating, he'd learned that a woman's hair was a much more delicate affair. It was longer, took more time, and you couldn't use the hottest setting or you'd damage it. A girl who really cared about her hair could easily spend half an hour just on drying it. Your arm would get sore long before the hair was dry. It was why, compared to guys, girls are more inclined to go to a salon to get their hair washed. Of course, if they had a boyfriend, they were more than happy to let him do the work. Julianne loved having Leo dry her hair because he was always so gentle and careful. What she didn't know was that every time he did it, he felt like he was blow-drying a puppy after its bath. Back at his grandmother's house, they had a big yellow dog. In the winter, Leo would always help dry its fur after a bath. Its coat was soft and fluffy, never prickly, and he loved to stroke its head. Then the dog got old and passed away. A few years later, his grandmother got old and passed away too. Strange, he thought. Why am I thinking about sad things again? He dried her hair until it was just slightly damp to the touch. That was enough. The rest could air dry. Over-drying with the hairdryer would make the ends frizzy and damage the hair. After he finished with Julianne's hair, Leo let the hairdryer cool down for a moment before turning it on himself. Julianne reached out. Here, let me blow you. Huh? What did you say? Leo's eyes went wide at her loaded words. You want to blow what? My. Julianne hadn't realized what she'd said at first. It was only when Leo reacted that she understood the double meaning. She glared at him. Your hair, obviously. What else? Why is your mind always in the gutter? Leo immediately shot back. Well, if your mind is so clean, how did you know my mind was in the gutter? That means your mind must be dirty too. Wait, you... That... Julianne was momentarily stunned. She realized his twisted logic actually made a weird sort of sense, and she didn't know how to respond. But that wasn't a problem. He was her boyfriend. When words failed, actions would suffice. Julianne reached out and pinched his side. Seeing her move, Leo laughed. Getting all flustered, are we? Ha! The next second, she squeezed harder. The laughter died in his throat. Hiss, ow, 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 I'm sorry, babe. Sit still and behave. Sitting, Julianne picked up the hairdryer. She had intended to be gentle, but she quickly discovered a problem. Drying a guy's hair didn't require any complex techniques. You just had to get dry. So, Julianne cranked it to the highest heat, grabbed his hair like she was petting a dog, and rustled it around. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In less than 2 minutes, he was done. It was over so fast, there wasn't even time to use it as a bonding experience. Watching him, hair already dry, Julianne said with a touch of envy, it must be so convenient to have short hair. Of course, Leo said, shaking his bangs. If I shave my head, you wouldn't even have to wash or dry it. Just wipe it with a towel when you wash your face in the morning, and you're good to go. Ha ha ha. You're ridiculous. That's not funny at all. Ha ha. Julianne tossed the hairdryer to Leo to put away and flopped onto the big bed, rolling around twice like a happy little piglet, a comparison that would surely earn Leo a beating if she ever heard it. Leo coiled the cord and put the hairdryer in a drawer, then collapsed onto the bed himself. Ha, yawned. So tired. Lying in bed really is the best. Yeah, Julianne said, lying down next to him and resting her head on his outstretched arm. You know, what would be perfect right now is if a gentle, considerate beauty would massage my sore shoulders and relieve the fatigue of the day. Leo turned his head and looked at her with a hopeful grin. Julianne pinched his nose and pouted. In your dreams. Fine, then I'll massage you. Hey, what are you doing? Stop it. Don't touch my leg, that tickles. Huh? And so, they spent their first wonderful night in their new home. As for just how wonderful it was, we won't go into detail. You can use your imagination. The house was now ready to be lived in, but one problem remained. How to trick Julianne's mother into moving in. They discussed it over breakfast the next morning. Saying the house was rented seemed a bit far-fetched. There were no signs of previous life. Everything was brand new. Who would rent out a freshly renovated villa? The small house Leo was currently renting for Clara was clearly older with worn furniture. It seemed no excuse would be good enough. After some deep deliberation, Leo and Julianne reached a consensus. First, they would tell Clara the house was a rental and gauge her reaction. If she didn't believe them, they would come clean and tell her they had bought it together. With the plan set, they quickly finished breakfast, tossed their bowls in the dishwasher, and set off to pick up Clara and show her the new place. About halfway there, they spotted an impressive-looking electric scooter dealership and immediately pulled over. They had been talking for a couple of days about getting a scooter to keep at the new house for quick trips like grabbing packages when they didn't feel like taking a car. Seeing the shop, they decided to pop in. When they explained they just needed something for riding around the neighborhood to get groceries and mail, the owner recommended a light, compact model that looked more like a stand-up scooter with a seat and a small basket on the front. It seemed convenient enough, but it was a bit small, making it difficult to carry two people, and the villa community was quite large. The scooter's range might not be sufficient. So, they politely declined the owner's recommendation and started browsing themselves. Their eyes, with uncanny synchronicity, both landed on a top-of-the-line, ultra-long-range model priced at an astonishing $5,000. When the owner quoted the price, they were both floored. They had never imagined an e-scooter could cost that much. In their minds, a scooter was something you bought for a few $100s. Clara's old one had only cost around $200. Seeing their interest in the $5,000 model, the owner launched into his sales pitch. This model comes with heated seats and grips, so your hands won't freeze in the winter. It has keyless start, and the zero-lag touchscreen display is made by the same company that supplies screens for new energy electric cars. Inside, it's got a Phoenix 999 processor. Wait a minute, Julianne interrupted. Why does a scooter need a high-end processor? Well, maybe some people like to play games on their scooter. Julianne's brow furrowed in a pained smile. Playing games on a scooter. Does that even make sense? The owner chuckled. Why not? New cars these days have 7 or 8 screens in them. You've got your cinema-grade HD display, your top-tier smart driving display. But when you're actually driving, all you need is the gas, the brake, and the steering wheel. All those other screens just increase your chances of getting in an accident. Ahem. Leo cleared his throat, cutting him off. Is this something you should be saying out loud? Ahem. Right back to the point. The manufacturer's original intention for this screen was actually for navigation. The owner said, using a key card to start the scooter and demonstrate its proper use. Navigation on a scooter sounded useful at first, but it was actually pointless. A scooter could only be used within the city, and you already knew your way around your own city. Why would you need navigation? Even for cars, navigation in the city was mostly to avoid traffic violations. What kind of violation could you possibly get on a scooter in the bike lane? At worst, a $20 fine for not wearing a helmet. I'm sure many of you have something to say about getting fined for not wearing a helmet. Essentially, all the upgrades on this scooter were useless. After hearing the owner's pitch, Julianne shook her head at Leo. Let's look at something else. We'd never get used to something this fancy. Leo immediately waved his hand. No, I want this one. Huh? What? Because it's expensive. Julianne's face darkened. She grabbed Leo by the ear and dragged him away. After looking around the whole store, they both found themselves still thinking about that first scooter. Neither could explain why, but maybe it was because its features were so numerous and so bizarre. So, after some deep consideration, actually not that deep, it was mostly Leo whining in Julianne's ear until she got annoyed and gave in, they decided to buy it. Even though it wasn't her money, Julianne still felt a pang of pain as Leo swiped his card. All that money, gone just like that for an e-scooter. You could buy a decent used car for $5,000 these days. Julianne whined, spending over $5,000 on a scooter. You're really something else. Do you actually want to join some kind of chaotic biker gang? What are you talking about? Have you ever seen a punk kid as handsome as me? Leo said, hopping onto the $5,000 scooter and rocking it back and forth. Besides, don't you think a scooter that can play games and has heated seats is super cool? Exactly. The ladies got it all wrong. The owner, who had just made a huge sale moments after opening, was grinning from ear to ear, a genuinely radiant smile. He said to Julianne, a punk kid couldn't afford a $5,000 scooter. Your boyfriend is a cut above that. He's not a punk kid. He's a punk man. Leo rubbed his forehead, mortified. That's a weird title. I think I prefer punk kid. You got it, punk kid, the owner said, clapping Leo on the shoulder. And I forgot to tell you, this thing has an even more awesome feature. What is it? It's got a Harman Kardon 3D surround sound system. It'll blow the whole street away. What? How do you play music? Show me, show me. Leo's interest was instantly piqued. Watching him, Julianne thought he looked more excited now than he ever did when he was driving his multi-million-dollar supercars. Leo took out his phone and connected it via Bluetooth as the owner instructed. And you had to admit, the sound system on this $5,000 scooter was incredible. With the volume cranked up, you could hear it from across the street. Leo couldn't help but imagine that if he really were some punk kid on this slick ride, he'd be picking up a different girl every night. See? A good scooter really is no worse than a Ferrari. Just kidding. Are you actually thinking about becoming a punk? Julianne reached up and bonked him on the head, the force just right, enough to stun him without causing brain damage. The blow shattered his delinquent dreams. Ahem, of course not. Impossible. Leo quickly dismounted the scooter. Since they had to go pick up Clara, they couldn't ride the scooter back now. Leo arranged for the owner to deliver it to his house on a tricycle truck. Given that he just dropped $5,000 on a scooter, the owner happily agreed to the delivery service. When he saw the address, a detached villa in the city's most expensive district, and glanced at Leo's unfamiliar model of Rolls-Royce, the owner immediately understood why Leo had spent the money so casually. This guy was the real deal. Damn it, the owner thought. If I had known, I would have recommended the $10,000 one. After buying the scooter, Leo and Julianne wasted no more time and headed to the villa where Clara Hale was staying. After so many days of rest, Clara's complexion had not only returned to normal, it was better than ever. Before, she had toiled with housework late into the night and worked all day to support her precarious family. She never ate or slept well and was constantly subjected to Trevor Hale's unpredictable moods. Now, divorced from him and supported by a wonderful future son-in-law, she lived in a villa where meals were prepared for her. The difference was night and day. How could her health not improve? Her once gaunt cheeks were now fuller, and her eyes softer. Having given birth to a daughter as beautiful as Julianne, it was clear that both Clara and Trevor must have been quite good-looking in their youth. Thinking of this, Leo suddenly recalled a conversation with his own mother. She had told him that his father, Charles, had been a most handsome young man in their rural town, a silver-tongued natural at business. In an era when no one could afford a bicycle, he had earned enough to buy a motorcycle, which in their poor village was the equivalent of a small car. When she married him, it had been a grand affair. A refrigerator, a color TV, a bicycle, and a $10,000 dowry. He single-handedly raised the dowry standards in her village. But the good days didn't last. He got addicted to gambling and started down a path to ruin. After his mother's death, he became a hollow shell of a man. Sometimes, Leo thought his own life was like a trashy novel, filled with every kind of unbelievable drama. It was why, after learning the truth about everything, he was so desperate to save Julianne. Wasn't he, in a way, trying to mend the regrets of his own life? Leo, come in, sit down, Clara said with a warm smile. Okay. Her smile reminded him of his own mother. For a moment, the two images, one real, one a memory, overlapped, and a genuine smile spread across Leo's face. Standing beside him, Julianne frowned. She noticed the strange way Leo was looking at her mother. Being perceptive, she felt something was off, and this wasn't the first time. The way he looked at her mom was just not right. Before they went inside, Julianne tugged on Leo's sleeve and whispered, Lily, why were you looking at my mom just now with such a gentle expression? She couldn't think of a better word for it than gentle. Leo didn't know how to answer, so he leaned in and whispered a joke at her ear. All right, I'll confess. The truth is, I'm in love with your mom. His ow, 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 I'm kidding, I'm sorry, stop. He didn't even get to finish his sentence before his side was assaulted. This was probably the hardest Julianne had ever pinched him, a full-force attack with no warning. Leo couldn't help but let out a yelp. Clara, who had already gone inside, heard his cry and rushed back out. What's wrong? No, nothing. Leo forced a pained smile. Julianne immediately let go, smiled at her mother, and said, This idiot slammed his thumb in the door. He's fine. Oh my, be more careful. Is it serious? Not at all. Not at all, Leo said, waving his hands frantically. You go on inside, ma'am. Jules and I are just changing our shoes. All right. Once Clara was back inside, Julianne whirled around and glared at Leo. You make a joke like that, you just wait. You're dead. I wouldn't dare, Leo said, rubbing his sore side and laughing awkwardly. You couldn't blame her for reacting so strongly. Anyone who said something like that would have it coming. But in a way, Leo's stupid joke had worked. Julianne was no longer concerned about his gentle gaze. She was now worried he was actually trying to steal her mother. So, in a way, his diversion had succeeded. If she had pressed him on why he looked at her mom so gently, Leo would have had no way to explain it without revealing his true identity. After the incident at the Cole family's birthday banquet, Leo had developed a healthy fear of Julianne's top-tier reasoning skills. If it weren't for the fact that being his girlfriend seemed to automatically lower her IQ when they were together, she probably would have already pieced together from the clues that he wasn't from this world. Back to the matter at hand. Inside, Leo and Julianne sat on the living room sofa. Clara emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 cups of tea. "Ma'am, please don't trouble yourself. Come sit down. Jules and I have something to talk to you about." "Yes, Mom, come sit." Julianne took her mother's hand, pulled her down onto the sofa next to her, and wrapped an arm around her waist as if declaring ownership. Then she shot a glare at Leo. Leo knew she was still mad about his earlier joke and could only rub his nose with a wry smile. "Goodness, what are you doing, dear?" Clara gently patted her daughter's hand. "Why are you clinging to me like this?" "It's nothing, Mom. I just like hugging you. You're almost old enough to get married, and you're still acting like a little child," Clara said, poking Julianne on the forehead. "Not that soon. At least not until I graduate from college," Julianne said, nudging Leo. "Right. All right, right." Leo nodded, then got to the point. "Ma'am, actually, we came here today because we have something important to tell you." "Oh." Clara looked at Leo. "What is it?" "The lease here is almost up, and Jules and I found a better, more stable place for you. It's only 2 blocks from our university, so it's very close. The owner just finished renovating but has to move out of town for work. He won't be back for 3 to 5 years and figured he might as well rent it out instead of letting it sit empty. He's a friend of my family, so if we sign a long-term lease, the price will be very reasonable." "Oh, that's wonderful," Clara said, pleasantly surprised. "If the price is good, we could rent it long-term. We could stay until the owner comes back. That's no problem at all." "Great, but there's just one issue." "What issue?" Clara frowned. Seeing the look on Leo's face, her first thought was that it must be a haunted house. Leo didn't know how to continue and looked at Julianne. Julianne thought for a few seconds. "The thing is, the house might be a little big." "Phew, is that all? I was worried it was something serious." "Bigger is better. I'd love to live in a big house." This is what you call a little big." Standing at the grand entrance of a new house, Clara's jaw nearly hit the floor. The old, detached house Leo had found for her before was already the nicest place she had ever lived. She had never imagined she would one day live within Ethelberg's inner ring, let alone in a villa there. Now, looking at this practically brand-new luxury villa, Clara's understanding of the world was once again shattered. A newly built, fully furnished, custom-renovated villa in the heart of Ethelberg, right next to the core commercial district. Clara couldn't even begin to imagine how expensive this place was, let alone consider living in it. Pointing a trembling finger at the villa, she asked, "Are you sure this is the right place? We didn't come to the wrong neighborhood, did we?" "This is it, ma'am," Leo said, pulling out the keys. "Let's go inside and take a look." No. Clara immediately waved her hands. "Leo, thank you for helping me find a place, but I really can't afford this. And it's far too big. Let's just forget it." With that, she turned to leave. "Wait, no. Don't go." Seeing Clara so agitated, Leo was at a loss for words. Julianne quickly grabbed her mother's arm. "Mom, come on, the rent isn't expensive. It's only a few $100 a month. The owner is a friend of Leo's family. He's not going to overcharge us." Right, it's only 500 a month. 500 a month for a villa." Clara frowned, looking at Leo. "We couldn't even afford the HOA fees. The owner pays the HOA fees. A house this big, the utility bills must be expensive. The owner pays the utilities too." Hearing this, Clara pushed her daughter away, put her hands on her hips, and stared at them. As if seeing through their lie, she demanded angrily, "All right, out with it. What's the real story with this house?" Julianne played dumb. "What do you mean? It really is that cheap. Leo and I wouldn't find an expensive place for you. The owner just wants someone to live here, so the house doesn't fall into disrepair while he's gone for a few years. Plus, he's a friend of Leo's family, so he gave us a friendly price. That's all there is to it. The owner doesn't need the money, so the few hundred in rent is just a token gesture." Julianne Hale was getting bolder and bolder. From Clara's tone, it was clear she didn't believe a word of it. "You'd even lie to your own mother now? Tell me the truth. What is going on with this house?" Mom, I'm really not lying. If you don't believe me, ask Leo." Intimidated by her mother's outburst, Julianne's confidence faltered, and she quickly passed the buck. Leo nodded, steeling himself. "It's true, ma'am. If you like the house, I can have the owner come over this afternoon to sign the lease. I guarantee it won't be more than 500. Clara pointed at the keys in Leo's hand. "You haven't even signed a lease, and the owner already gave you the keys?" Yeah, I stayed here last night to try it out." Seeing the two of them were determined to keep lying, Clara was speechless. The truth, despite her fearless demeanor with everyone else, Julianne was still a good girl in front of her mother. At her mother's shout, she immediately folded. Head down, Julianne mumbled, "Okay, I confess. This is a house that Leo and I bought for you to live in. Don't be ridiculous. Where would you two get that kind of money?" Although she had given her daughter a few $100,000 from the settlement, that amount wouldn't even buy half a bathroom here. Clara didn't believe her. Her gaze shifted to Leo. Ma'am, it's true that Jules and I bought it for you together. We both contributed. I put in a larger share, but Jules contributed too. So this is your home. Please just live here peacefully. My home." Clara shook her head and sighed. "Leo, you don't have to lie to me. Your parents bought this for you, didn't they? A house this expensive should be for them. I'm not worthy of it." Julianne took her mother's hand, her voice pleading. "Mom, we really did buy it together. Just live here. We can invite Leo's parents over for a housewarming party, and we can all celebrate the new year together in our new home." "No, absolutely not. Stop lying to me. You don't have that kind of money. This is his house. I won't live here, living in my son-in-law's house. People will talk." "They won't, Mom. We really did buy it together. I paid for it too. You know I write books, right? I made some money from my writing, and with the money you gave me, I put in half. Leo put in the other half. We bought it together, really." "She's right, ma'am. And the house isn't as expensive as you think. Look around. All these houses are empty. No one's buying, so the developer dropped the price and sold it to us cheap. They just want to get people living here to make the properties seem more valuable, so they can raise the prices later. So we basically got a steal. Yeah, we got a great deal on it. You don't have to lie to me. No matter how cheap it is, you can't buy a house like this for just a few million," Clara said, turning to walk away again. Watching her determined mother leave, Julianne shot Leo a helpless smile, her expression saying, "See? I told you. My mom is tough." Leo watched Clara's retreating figure and said to Julianne, "If this doesn't work, we'll have to use our last resort." "What? Brute force?" "Okay." They walked over and grabbed Clara's arms, one on each side. "Sorry, ma'am," Leo said. Then, together with Julianne, they kidnapped her and dragged her into the villa. After forcibly giving her a tour of the entire house, from the first floor to the top, Leo and Julianne stood with her on the rooftop terrace. Leo leaned against the railing. "Ma'am, if you don't agree to live here, we're going to jump from right here, right now." Julianne added with a dead serious expression, "This house is only in my name. If you won't live here, I'll die. Once I'm dead, the house will transfer to you, and then you can live here in peace, right?" Seeing their earnest faces, Clara's face went white with terror. "You two stop this. Get down from there." This devious little plan was something Leo had cooked up over breakfast. If it weren't for Clara's incredibly stubborn nature, they would never have resorted to such a method to force her to accept the new home. Leo and Julianne had never imagined they would one day have to threaten suicide to beg someone to move into a luxury villa. The situation was completely surreal. Clara, for her part, had never imagined that two people would threaten to jump off a building to beg her to live in a mansion. If it weren't for the fact that her daughter truly loved Leo, and that Leo was genuinely good to her daughter, she would have felt like she'd sold her own child for a life of luxury. This world was truly absurd. Clara sighed, finally relenting. I agree, but you two get down from there first." Julianne immediately shook her head. "Nope, words aren't enough. You have to write a guarantee first." Hearing her daughter's demand, Clara nearly fainted from frustration. She gritted her teeth and agreed. "Fine." A few days before New Year's, an auspicious day for moving, Leo and Julianne held a housewarming party at their new home. Neither side invited too many people, just a few close relatives and friends. Charles Miller was busy with company matters and couldn't make it, but thankfully, Michelle Miller came. Michelle and Clara Hale hit it off immediately, chatting like they were long-lost sisters. It was only through their conversation that Leo discovered his mother was the pampered daughter of a wealthy East Coast family. Michelle had been doted on by her parents her whole life, and after marrying Charles, she was treated like a princess, never having to lift a finger for housework. She was, however, fascinated by cooking, though she had absolutely no skill for it. Clara was the complete opposite. She grew up poor, was helping in the kitchen by the time she was a few years old, and could cook for the whole family by the age of 8. After decades of cooking, her culinary skills were naturally impeccable, and she was a master of needlework as well. The two of them spent the whole evening bonding over these differences. When they got excited, they ran into the kitchen for a practical session. "But put the oil in first." "Yes, heat the oil. Turn the fire down." No, down is the other way. Can I put the food in now? No, the flame is too high. Turn it down, it's going to catch. Whoosh. Ah, fire. Fire. What do we do? Turn off the gas. Find the lid. Where's the lid? Watching the flames lick up from the kitchen, Julianne whispered to Leo, maybe you should go talk to Michelle. Leo scratched his head. I don't think I can persuade her. Your mom is in there watching. It should be fine, right? Julianne stroked her chin, her expression grave. I'm not so sure. What are you two whispering about? Damien Sterling appeared behind them. Stop gossiping and come join our game. Leo glanced over his shoulder. I don't know how to play chess. It's not chess. Go then. I don't know that either. Not go either, Julian interjected. Is it Connect 4? I know how to play. I'm in. Not Connect 4 either. Damien pointed to the group in the living room. We're playing teamfight tactics on our phones. We're just waiting for you two. Oh, TFT, huh? Leo sighed, rubbing his forehead. On the living room sofa sat a group of their friends. From left to right were Ethan Cole, Jessica, Chloe, Tyler Yu, Talia Yu, and Serafina Rose. The empty seat next to Serafina was Damien's. Leo had also asked Damien to invite Audrey and Dylan Song. Dylan was on his way, and Audrey was still at work and would arrive later. Talia didn't play games, so for the 8-player TFT match, they were too short. Leo and Julianne were the perfect additions. Jessica and Chloe were terrible and should have been the first two out, but Ethan and Tyler were playing selflessly, feeding them wins and taking the fall themselves. The two guys ended up in 7th and 8th place. Such was the noble sacrifice for love. Leo and Julianne, on the other hand, were apparently quick learners because soon enough, it was just the two of them left, battling for 1st and 2nd place. Their strengths were evenly matched, their teams of similar quality, and both were down to their last dozen health points. Leo decided to go all in, spending all his gold to try and get a 3-star, 5-cost champion. Julianne, after calculating the potential damage from the next round, opted for a more stable approach. After the round, Julianne was left with a single point of health. Leo had spent all his money and failed to get his 3-star champion, but his current team was strong enough to secure 1st place. Just as the round ended, Julianne spent all her gold, and in the final second, miraculously managed to get her own 3-star, 5-cost champion. Leo stared at her board in disbelief. You cheated. Admit it. Julianne just grinned. What can I say? I'm the chosen one. Leo, looking at the now-decided outcome, frowned. Wait a minute. Why is one of my 5-cost champions sitting on your bench? Damien clapped him on the shoulder. Isn't it obvious? She was blocking you. Leo looked around at everyone in confusion. When did she do that? Everyone answered in unison. She did it when you went all in. We all saw it. You're the only one who didn't. Leo scratched his hair. Then why didn't any of you tell me? Julianne put down her phone. A silent observer watches the game. Ever heard of it? Staring at the grayed-out screen on his phone and the 2nd-place icon, Leo said, You block my pieces. You're despicable. It's not despicable, it's called strategy, babe, Julianne said, lightly tapping his forehead with her finger. Yo, the rest of the group chorused, looking at them with disgust. Leo sighed. Next time, no more gambling. I'm going to play it safe, block your pieces, and grind out a win. Why are you so obsessed with winning against me? I'm your girlfriend. Can't you just let me win? Julianne pointed at Ethan and Tyler. Look at them. They're such gentlemen. They let the girls win. You're the only one going all in, like you can't wait to knock me out. Leo immediately retorted. The point of playing a game is to win. Playing my best to win is a sign of respect for my opponent. Okay. You and your excuses, humph. Julianne turned to the others. Anyone else want to play? They all frantically waved their hands. No, you're too good. We can't beat you. No fun, Julianne said, picking up the remote. Let's watch TV. See if there are any good new movies out. Leo's custom-installed, massive wall-mounted TV turned the living room into a mini-movie theater. The atmosphere was perfect. Julianne picked a comedy, and just as they were starting to watch, the doorbell rang. Ethan, sitting closest, got up to answer it. The moment the door opened, a voice called out, Yo, isn't it, Mr. Cole? What are you doing here? The guy greeting Ethan was none other than Audrey Song's younger brother, Dylan. Unlike his mature and steady sister, Dylan was like a kid who had never grown up. Still in high school, he had bleached blonde hair and wore loud, trendy clothes. Though he was a good-for-nothing rich kid, he had a good heart. In the book, he was the only family member who supported his sister in her fight against their parents' arranged marriage. Once inside, Damien introduced him around. With his outgoing, quirky, and joking personality, he quickly blended in with the group, and the party became even more lively. Including Dylan, the descendants of 4 of Ethelberg's 5 great families were present tonight. Only the Jiang family was absent, and no one here was particularly close with him anyway. Not long after Dylan arrived, Audrey showed up too. She hadn't had time to go home and change, so she bought a new gown on the way and changed right before coming over. She was in such a rush that she hadn't even taken off the price tag. It wasn't until they were eating that Serafina noticed and pointed it out to her. During dinner, no one dared to touch the plate of blackened Coca-Cola chicken wings that Michelle had made. Julianne shot Leo a look, silently telling him to try a piece and praise his mother's cooking to make her happy. Leo wasn't an idiot. There was no way he was eating that suspiciously colored chicken, not even if his own mother made it. So, he gave Damien a pointed look, signaling him to take one for the team. Damien stared at the wings, feeling like even the air around them was discolored. He shook his head, refusing, and turned to Dylan. Dylan was about to refuse, but unfortunately for him, he had a very proactive sister. Audrey, with lightning speed, picked up a wing and shoved it into her brother's mouth. Seeing someone eat her cooking, Michelle was both surprised and delighted. Her eyes widened as she asked, "Is it good?" It's delicious." From the pained grimace on Dylan's face, it was clear just how horrifying the taste was. Having suffered, Dylan immediately thought of a mischievous plan. "I've never had chicken wings this good in my life. Everyone, you have to try them. You'll regret it if you miss out." He started by serving one to his sister, then passed the plate around. Flushed with praise, Michelle happily distributed the wings. One for each of the young people, which was just enough. She and Clara didn't take any. "Mom, I'll pass. You can have my piece," Leo said with great filial piety, trying to give his wing to his mother. But before he could even pick it up, Julianne snatched it and stuffed it into his mouth. In retaliation, Leo grabbed the other wing and stuffed it into Julianne's mouth. Their loving murderous exchange ended with both of them eating the chicken. And surprisingly, while it looked terrifying, the taste wasn't half bad. It seemed Clara had done a decent job teaching Michelle after all. The housewarming ceremony was scheduled for midnight. None of the younger generation knew why, but it was the time Charles had set, so Leo had to abide by it. The dinner ended before 8, leaving 4 long, boring hours to wait. Leo propped his chin on his hand. "I'm so bored. Is there anything to pass the time?" Dylan immediately piped up. "You bet, bro. There's lots of stuff. We could play Cards Against Humanity or Parcheesi." "Wait, I don't have Cards Against Humanity here." "No problem, I do." Dylan suddenly produced a box of the game from the front of his pants. "Who's in, my dudes?" The girls in the room looked at Dylan with utter disgust, saying in unison, "Where did you just pull that from?" "Don't worry about the details." Dylan waved his hand. "So who wants to play?" Damien gave him a thumbs up. "Excellent. I'll be sure to leave you a 5-star review." Leo facepalmed. "That's not how you use that meme." With nothing better to do, the group gathered around the table to play the game Dylan had pulled out his pants. Clara and Michelle sat in the living room, watching a sappy romance movie and dissecting the plot. The scene in the villa was one of perfect harmony. Meanwhile, at the Miller Group headquarters, Charles had just finished dealing with a backlog of work. During a brief break, he opened a document titled Missing Persons Ethelberg Shelter. That's right, the Miller family ran a shelter dedicated to helping the city's homeless population. They didn't just give handouts. Their main job was to help people find their families and return home. If someone had no family or couldn't go back for some reason, they would offer them a job at the shelter, providing food, lodging, and a salary. Of course, not all of them were willing to work. Some were just lazy, with no tragic backstory. They would refuse work, but occasionally use the public facilities to shower or buy cheap food. But starting last November, the number of homeless people in Ethelberg had begun to dwindle. Ordinary people didn't notice or care, but the shelter, which dealt with them daily, certainly did. Starting in early December, the shelter's administrator began keeping a list of familiar faces who had lost contact. The results were startling. As of today, 30 regulars had vanished without a trace. He immediately compiled the list into a document and sent it to the relevant government departments. The shelter often collaborated with the government, which was one of Charles's goals in establishing it. Building relationships this way was far more effective than backroom deals and lavish dinners. Plus, it earned them a good reputation. That's how business was done. You didn't think the rich were all fools, burning their money on charity, did you? Behind every act of philanthropy was a complex web of interests. But in the end, you judge by actions, not intentions. The Miller family shelters had genuinely helped people, and that was enough. The police received the list and immediately formed a special task force. Word got back to Charles, and he requested a copy of the document. After reading it, Charles's expression grew grim. He rubbed his tired eyes and checked the time. It was almost midnight. At this hour, Ethelberg was still a bustling city of lights and traffic. "What a beautiful city," he murmured, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window. He put on his coat and walked out of his office. He still had about 15 minutes. If he left now, he could still make it to his son's housewarming ceremony. The driver was already waiting downstairs. Charles got in the car, leaned back, and told the driver, to the young master's new house. "Yes, sir." Charles took out his phone and dialed Leo's number. When the call connected, his fatigue vanished. "Son," he said happily, "has the ceremony started yet?" "Not yet, just waiting for you." "Hurry up." "All right, Dad's on his way back." Arriving at the new house after a long day, Charles looked at the group of his son's friends in the living room and felt his world tilt. 3 of the 4 great families were represented, plus Damien Sterling. Basically, the entire next generation of Ethelberg's elite was gathered here. By the time the housewarming ceremony was over, it was already 12:30 a.m. Everyone had been partying all night and was getting hungry. Fortunately, Leo had planned ahead and had the 2 hired cooks prepare a late-night snack. After eating, Leo rode his new e-scooter to ferry everyone to the villa community's main gate. When Dylan Song saw Leo's unique scooter, he stared at it like it was a top-tier supercar, his eyes glued to it. He insisted on borrowing it for a spin. Audrey had no choice but to wait for her foolish brother by her car. Leaning against the doorframe, Audrey watched Dylan ride off into the distance. "My brother's always like this," she said to the others. "A bit of an idiot. Sorry for the trouble." Julianne waved her hand. "Not at all. He's an interesting guy. I bet he has a lot of friends at school." "Don't even get me started," Audrey said with a frown. "They're all bad influences. I don't know when that silly kid will ever grow up." Leo looked at Tyler Yu and his sister. "How are you 2 getting home?" "I can take them," Ethan Cole said before Tyler could answer. "I'm dropping off Jessica and Chloe anyway, and they all live in the same area. It's no trouble." Tyler nodded. "Yeah, we'll go with Ethan." "All right then," Leo said. Audrey added, "Will you all fit? If not, you can come with us." She drove a Porsche 911, a car she'd bought with her own money. The back seat was cramped, but it could squeeze in 2 people. Damien's car was a 2-seater sports car, so he could only take Serafina. Ethan waved his hand. "It's fine. My family's driver is coming with the van. There's plenty of room in the back." "Okay then," Audrey nodded. Dylan returned from his joyride, grinning from ear to ear. He ran over to Leo. "Bro, where'd you buy this scooter? I'm gonna get one too. This thing is awesome." Before Leo could answer, Audrey cut in. "You have a driver taking you to and from school every day. What do you need a scooter for?" Dylan lied without batting an eye. "If I had a scooter, I wouldn't need the driver to take me." Of course, Audrey didn't believe him. She scowled. "I think you just want a tricked-out bike so you can be a delinquent." "No way, of course not. But then again, being a delinquent doesn't sound so bad. The delinquents at my school always have girls on the back of their bikes." "Ouch, ouch, ouch, sis, I'm sorry." Hearing her brother's words, Audrey's face darkened. She grabbed his ear and dragged him to the car. "You are not going to embarrass me." She shot her brother a glare, then smiled apologetically at Leo and the others. "It's getting late, so we'll head out." Damien added, "Yeah, Miller, we're taking off too." Ethan pointed to the van that was pulling up. "We should get going too. Thanks for having us tonight." Leo smiled at everyone. "It was nothing. Drive safe, it's late." Julianne nodded. "Thanks for coming to our housewarming, even though you're all so busy. We're so sorry for keeping you all this late." Their friends got into their cars and slowly drove away. The once noisy entrance to the community fell silent. When they had all come out together, Leo hadn't felt the emptiness. But now, on the way back, it was just him and Julianne on the scooter. The cold wind blew past, and the dark, unfinished villas on either side of the road gave the place a desolate feel. Sitting behind him, Julianne wrapped her arms tighter around Leo's waist. "It feels so creepy here at night. The development just opened, so it's normal." Leo comforted her. "Don't be scared. Once the occupancy rate goes up and there are more people, it won't feel so empty." Ethelberg had too many rich people. A location like this in the city center wouldn't have trouble selling. It wouldn't be long before the neighborhood was full. Villas had their own hierarchy. Compared to these villas that anyone with money could buy, the houses in Alleian estates were the truly difficult ones to acquire. To live there, you needed more than just money. You needed power and connections. Not just anyone could benefit from the estate's golden toad gathers treasure feng shui. That was why, despite having only a dozen or so villas, Alleian estates still hadn't sold out. As he was driving, Leo said to Julianne, "Babe, don't hold on so tight." "Why? Am I squeezing the air out of you?" "No, it's just, with you pressing against my back so hard, I can't focus on the road." "What do you mean?" Julianne froze for a second, glanced down at her chest, and then immediately understood. Her face flushed, and she lightly punched him on the back. "You big pervert. Is that all you ever think about?" Leo replied innocently. You're the one pressing against me. How is this my fault? Oh, shut up, she said, punching him again. When they got home, the messy house had already been tidied up by the cleaning crew they'd hired. Both sets of parents were sitting on the living room sofa, discussing their wedding. The moment they saw them, the parents quickly changed the subject. You brat. Come with me for a minute, Charles said, getting up and calling Leo into a room. Leo immediately followed his father. Once inside, Charles's expression turned serious. Leo sensed trouble and wiped the smile off his face. What's up, Dad? Did you listen to a single word I said to you before? Oh, well, about that. Leo scratched his head. Dad, the thing is, it's kind of complicated. I really don't want to get too close to them, but, sometimes. All right, stop with the nonsense, Charles said, waving his hand dismissively. I'll say it again. Don't get too involved with them. I don't want the Miller family getting dragged into the conflicts of the great families. Okay, Dad. Leo nodded seriously. He'd heard the words, but whether he could follow through was another matter entirely. All right, Charles said, as if remembering something. He looked at Leo seriously. Ethelberg has been a little unsettled lately. Be careful when you go out at night. Did something happen? Don't ask so many questions. Just remember what I told you. Okay, Dad. Jessica and Chloe lived closer to the city center, so they were the first to be dropped off. The Yu siblings lived in the suburbs, and by the time Ethan Cole got them home, it was already past 1 in the morning. Checking the distance, he decided not to have the driver return to the Cole estate. Instead, he would go to another one of his properties nearby in the suburbs. The Cole family owned many properties. The estate where they'd held the birthday banquet was just one of them. BZZZT. Ethan's phone vibrated. It was a message from Jessica, asking if he'd gotten home yet. A smile spread across Ethan's face as he typed back. Almost. About 15 minutes away. After sending the message, he stared at the screen, waiting for her immediate reply. Just then, the driver, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly spoke. Sir, there seems to be a dark shape up ahead. Ethan looked up. Just as the driver said, at the far end of the road, a dark shape was vaguely moving in the middle of the street. It was too far to see clearly if it was a person or an animal. It's the middle of the night, out in the middle of nowhere. There can't be anyone out here, right? Ethan said to the driver. It's probably just an animal, the driver said reassuringly. Wild boars sometimes bring their piglets out to forage at night. From a distance, they just look like a dark lump. That shadow is too tall to be a boar, Ethan said, stroking his chin. Speed up. Let's go see what it is. Yes, sir. Ethan's driver was a professional bodyguard, highly skilled, with a record of taking on 5 professional fighters at once. He wasn't about to be scared off by a shadow. The car accelerated. As they got closer, the single shadow suddenly became 3. Both of them widened their eyes, trying to get a clear look. But just as the car got near, the shadows vanished. The end of the road was empty. If they both hadn't been so sure of what they'd seen, they would have thought their eyes were playing tricks on them. The driver slowed down and asked for instructions. Should I get out and take a look? No, don't. Ethan wasn't a coward, but tonight's events were too strange. Out here in the wilderness, he was genuinely afraid something would happen if the driver got out. It wasn't worth the risk. Let's just go. Yes, sir. Following Ethan's orders, the driver turned and sped away. After the car was long gone, several menacing, tattooed men emerged from the bushes, dragging an unconscious but able-bodied beggar back onto the road. Damn it, that stinking beggar almost got away, one of them cursed. If he'd escaped, we'd all be dead. What was a car doing out here in the middle of the night anyway? So weird. Who cares? Let's just get him back. After leaving that intersection, Ethan glanced back through the rear window. Even though they were far away and couldn't see anything, an unsettling feeling lingered in his gut. Anyone would feel uneasy after such a strange encounter late at night. But soon enough, he was engrossed in his chat with Jessica again, and all the unsettling thoughts were pushed to the back of his mind. Ethan, what time are you going to bed? Jessica, soon. I just got out of the shower, and I'm lying in bed now. Are you home yet? Ethan, should be there in a few minutes. Jessica, thank you so much for driving us home tonight. We really took up a lot of your time. Ethan, it was nothing, no trouble at all. If the driver knew what they were texting, he'd probably be thinking, yeah, no trouble for you because I'm the one doing all the driving. Ethan, any plans for the new year? Jessica, probably going to my dad's hometown for the holiday. Ethan, does that mean I won't get to see you for a while? Jessica, you could always come to my hometown and visit me. Ethan, really? Can I? Jessica, yeah, of course. My hometown isn't that far from Ethelberg. It's only an hour or so by car. Ethan, okay. Despite the housewarming party running late into the night, Julianne was up bright and early the next morning. She had learned the night before that Charles was heading to the office and Michelle was going back to Alleian estates, so they would both be up early. As the future daughter-in-law of the Miller family, Julianne had her own little strategy. She woke up early and prepared a lavish, delicious breakfast, a spread that could rival a Southern-style brunch, covering the entire table. The moment Charles and Michelle woke up, they could smell the fragrant aroma of breakfast. When they came downstairs, they were greeted by the sight of the magnificent spread and Julianne's sweet, "Good morning." The whole experience put them in a great mood for the day and improved their impression of her even more. "Julianne, did you make all this?" Michelle asked in amazement, looking at the table. Still wearing her apron, Julianne said, "Yes. I wasn't sure of your tastes, so I made a little extra. Please eat. If there's anything else you'd like, just let me know and I'll make it." "Oh, come here." Michelle took Julianne's hand, pulled her close, and untied her apron. "This is more than enough, and these are all our favorite things. You must be exhausted after cooking all morning. Come, sit down and eat with us." "It was no trouble at all," Julianne said with a wave of her hand. "When I lived with my mom, I made breakfast every day too. But my skills aren't as good as hers, so this might not be as tasty." "Nonsense, this is delicious," Charles said, popping a small pork bun into his mouth. He chuckled. "This pork bun is better than what the chef I hired at high price makes." Michelle nodded in agreement. Yes, you'll have to teach me sometime. After your mom taught me last night, I'm even more interested in cooking now." The three of them sat at the table, eating and chatting, the atmosphere wonderfully harmonious. Just as they were finishing, Clara woke up. Charles and Michelle couldn't stop praising Julianne to her, so much so that Julianne started to blush. Clara just smiled, a look of gratification on her face. Clara said to them, "This year, for New Year's, why don't our two families have a meal together? I can cook some of my homemade dishes for you." Michelle glanced at Charles. Seeing him nod, she immediately said, "That sounds wonderful. I'll have to take good notes." After Michelle finished, Charles spoke up. "We also have our own New Year's dinner to prepare. How about this? For lunch, we'll eat at your place. And for the New Year's Eve dinner, let's all go to Alleian estates and cook together. We can have a proper celebration." Michelle immediately chimed in. "That's an excellent idea." Clara nodded. Okay. Then you must come for lunch." After Leo's parents had left, Clara Hale ate a few bites of food and went back to her room to catch up on sleep. She was still recovering, and after staying up so late the night before, she was far from rested. If it hadn't been for the Millers, she wouldn't have forced herself to get up at that hour. Just as Clara went back to bed, Leo woke up. With both sets of parents in the house, he and Julianne had slept in separate rooms. None of them knew the two had already been living together for months. He'd slept soundly until the scent of food wafted into his dreams, waking him with a sharp pang of hunger. He decided to head downstairs and investigate the source of the delicious smell. Descending the stairs, Leo saw the breakfast spread on the dining table and grinned. "Babe, did you make all this for me?" A playful smile touched Julianne's lips. "I didn't make your breakfast," she teased. "You can go by your own." Leo knew she was joking. He wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, nuzzling his face against her cheek. "Oh, really? You dare not make my breakfast? In that case, I'll just have to eat you." "Haha, stop it, that tickles." Julianne giggled as his hair brushed against her skin. She lightly slapped the back of his hand. "My mom's still upstairs. Behave, or she'll see." "Ew, you should have said so sooner." The mention of a parent in the house was like a splash of cold water. Leo immediately straightened up, retracting his hands and standing behind Julianne like a well-behaved statue. "Haha, you big dummy." Seeing his reaction, Julianne reached up and flicked his forehead. Her lips curved into a mischievous grin. "What's the matter? Scared? Oh, you're challenging me now? You're finished," Leo declared, lunging forward again. He wrapped his arms around her waist and planted a firm kiss on her lips. Just then, a floorboard creaked upstairs. Both of them jumped, pushing each other away as if they'd been caught. After a few seconds of silence, they made eye contact and burst out laughing. Julianne pointed to the food on the table. "This is what's left of breakfast. See what you like, and I'll heat it up for you in the kitchen." "No need to heat it. I can eat it like this," Leo said, pulling out a chair. He grabbed a piece of an egg and bacon flatbread. "I'm not a picky eater. I love anything you make." "You're awfully good with compliments today," Julianne said, smiling as she snatched the flatbread from his hand and put it back on the plate. "Don't eat it cold. It's bad for your stomach first thing in the morning. I'll go warm it up." "All right then. Thank you, my darling Jules." "Ugh, so cheesy," she said, rolling her eyes playfully before heading to the kitchen. After breakfast, the two of them ended up back on the couch for another nap. Yes, on the couch. With Clara still in the house, Julianne couldn't exactly march into Leo's room for a nap in broad daylight. Even though they were practically engaged, they weren't officially married yet. A little discretion in front of her mother seemed appropriate. So they lay on the couch, ostensibly to watch TV, but in reality, they were cuddled up and fast asleep. They had only meant to doze off for a little while. After a poor night's sleep, a post-breakfast nap was perfectly normal. But they overslept completely. By the time they woke up, Clara had already finished making lunch. The aroma of food woke Julianne first. When she opened her eyes, Leo was still holding her tightly, his face pressed against hers, sleeping soundly. "Wake up, sleepyhead." Julianne nudged him a few times, but it had little effect. Leo showed no signs of waking. Seeing this, she reached out and gave his side a sharp pinch. He jolted awake instantly. What? What happened?" Leo rubbed his eyes, looking at Julianne in a daze. Julianne glanced toward the kitchen. "My mom's cooking, so she probably saw us asleep on the couch together." "Do you even have to ask?" "Of course she did." "Oh God, how embarrassing." "No time to be embarrassed. Get up," Julianne said, giving his but a light smack. "Hey, you shameless hussy," Leo grumbled, stretching as he sat up. Seeing them awake, Clara emerged from the kitchen. "Wash your hands and come eat." "Okay, Mom," Julianne answered obediently. Standing beside her, Leo pitched his voice high, drawing out the word in a perfect imitation of Julianne's tone. "Okay, Mom." "Oh, get out of here," Julianne said, laughing at his antics as she smacked his butt again. Clara watched the two of them bicker, a fond, maternal smile spreading across her face. They were like two children who had never quite grown up. "Clara," Leo said during lunch, "starting tomorrow, I'll hire a few housekeepers to help you out, just like at the old place. You shouldn't have to worry about cooking and things like that. The most important thing is for you to rest and recover." The cleaners from the housewarming were temporary. Leo hadn't had time to hire permanent staff yet. "It's fine, I'm all better now," Clara said, waving her hand dismissively. "I don't need people waiting on me. I'm not that delicate." "Please, Clara, you really don't have to do all this work," Leo insisted, putting down his bowl. "I've already arranged a job for you. For now, just focus on getting your strength back. When the semester starts at the Royal Academy, there will be something waiting for you." Clara was the type who couldn't sit still. She had worked hard her entire life. If she were suddenly forced to do nothing, she'd be miserable. Leo knew this, which was why he'd arranged a simple administrative job for her at the university. With her working under his purview, he could look out for her. It was certainly better than her going back to a factory job. All right. If you put it that way, I'll agree to it." Clara finally relented, accepting Leo's offer to hire help for the new house. Once Leo and her mother finished their conversation, Julianne spoke up. "Mom, after lunch, you want to go to the supermarket with us?" Clara looked at her. "What for?" "To buy things for New Year's." "Yeah, exactly. New Year's Eve is tomorrow, and we ate all the snacks from the housewarming party. We need to restock." Julianne glanced at Leo before continuing. "Leo and I went the other day, but we had no idea what to buy. It would be great if you came with us today." "Okay, sounds good. Let's go after we clean up," Clara agreed with a nod. The festive spirit of the holidays had faded over the years. Even though tomorrow was New Year's Eve, all the shops on the street were open for business as usual. Some restaurants wouldn't even close for the holiday, staying open straight through to New Year's morning. At some point, it seemed, making money had become more important than celebrating the new year. Leo and Julianne followed Clara on their holiday shopping trip. As they were leaving the mall, a vendor pushing a small cart and calling out his wares passed by, selling candied apples. Before Julianne could even say she wanted one, Clara had already pulled out her wallet and bought two, one for her and one for Leo. In her eyes, these two 20-somethings were still just a couple of kids. "Thanks, Clara," Leo said, accepting the candied apple. He took a bite, the thin, brittle sugar shell cracking under his teeth. A sweet warmth spread from his mouth to his heart, filling him with an indescribable sense of happiness. It was different from the happiness of being in love with Julianne. This was something special, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a very long time. One candied apple, and memories of his childhood came rushing back. As a kid, Leo had loved the holidays. He'd get to go to the winter market with his mom and buy all sorts of treats to take home. The festive atmosphere back then was so much richer. The streets were decorated with lights and garlands. Stalls near the market entrance sold handmade holiday cards. There were printed ones too, but they didn't sell as well. He remembered everyone preferring the handmade ones. The artists with the best handwriting always had long lines at their tables. Further inside the market, both sides were lined with candy sellers. Brand names were rare back then. Most of the candy came from obscure factories with packaging that shamelessly copied one another. Leo loved digging through the piles of generic sweets to find his favorite saltwater taffy. Besides the name brand caramels, he thought it was the best candy in the world, and it was softer, too. After buying candy, he'd follow his mom to get other things for their holiday platters: dried fruits, sunflower seeds, and peanuts, and then all the vegetables they need to stock up for the week. Back then, people started preparing a month in advance. By New Year's Eve, most shops were closed, and you couldn't buy anything on New Year's Day itself. After they had bought all the miscellaneous items, his mom would take him to buy new clothes for the new year. But he was never very interested in new clothes. More than a fancy new outfit, he wanted a burger and fries. So after they were done shopping, his mom would take him to some no-name fast food joint for a couple of cheap burgers with crispy chicken patties. Then they'd go to the supermarket and spend $3 on a bottle of Coke. He'd eat his burger as they walked home. The cold wind would chill the bun, but the chicken inside was still warm. After finishing the burger, he'd take a sip of the ice-cold soda, the bubbles exploding in his mouth. The faint winter sun would shine through the plastic bottle onto his face, and a happy smile would spread across his boyish features. Wasn't that the most beautiful moment of all? Back then, the holiday break was only about 10 days long. The beauty was fleeting, yet it felt like an eternity, so long that years later, when Leo recalled those beautiful fragments of his childhood, he would still feel a sense of nostalgia, and tears of happiness would well up in his eyes. Later, after losing so much, Leo finally understood. The holidays weren't long at all. It was just that the little boy inside him was forever trapped in the long, drawn-out memories of a beautiful childhood he could never escape. In the 2 years after graduation, all he wanted was to get rich. Making money, mountains of it, seemed to have become his entire reason for living. He'd lost track of what he truly wanted. The painful parts of his childhood had taken over his emotions, leaving him perpetually down and causing him to forget the happy times. The result was that when he suddenly did become rich, he was filled with anxiety. He didn't know how to squander his endless wealth because his heart was empty, and the fortune he'd suddenly acquired felt just as hollow. The massive leap from broke to billionaire heir was such a shock that he no longer knew what the meaning of life was. Thinking back, he realized that doing something as wasteful and absurdly comical as ordering his maid to pour a milkshake down the drain was just a manifestation of the unease he felt after his sudden windfall. Looking at the candied apple in his hand, with one bite taken out of it, Leo suddenly recalled the words on the note Logan had given him. "Leo, I need you to think carefully. What kind of life do you really want? Is what I want really just an endless supply of money? Or is it something else?" Leo couldn't help but ask himself, "What's wrong? You don't like it?" Julianne had already eaten half of her apple. Seeing Leo just standing there staring at his, she nudged him with her elbow. "If you don't want it, I guess I can do you a favor and eat it for you." As she spoke, she opened her mouth to take a bite of his candied apple. Of course, Leo wasn't going to let her. He gently pressed his palm against her forehead, stopping her. "Clara bought this for me. Eat your own." "Oh, come on, just let me have a taste. Don't be so stingy." "No way. Not a chance." Clara couldn't watch anymore. "Jules, how old are you? Why are you still acting like a little kid?" Fine, Julianne grumbled, immediately behaving herself after being scolded by her mother. Hid. You want it? Too bad." Leo flashed a triumphant smile, dangling the candied apple in front of her. Julianne didn't really want to steal his apple. She wasn't a child anymore. She had only started teasing him because she saw the troubled look on his face. Now, seeing him smile again, she smiled to herself and muttered under her breath, "You big dork." Clara had intended to buy a nice, handcrafted holiday sign to hang on their new front door, but Leo said he could make one himself. So she abandoned the idea and instead picked up some nice cardstock, ink, and calligraphy pens at a craft stall. After buying all their holiday supplies, the three of them drove home. The moment they stepped inside, Clara took the groceries to the kitchen to start prepping. Leo and Julianne, the two useless ones, collapsed onto the sofa and started sneaking snacks they just bought. "See, when the cat's away, the mice will play." That evening, after dinner, Julianne came up with an excuse to have Leo help her with her novel and took her laptop into his room. She didn't really need an excuse. Clara wouldn't have said anything. But her insistence that she was going to his room to discuss writing felt a little like she was trying to fool herself. Once inside, though, Julianne really did start writing. She sat at the desk, typing seriously, pausing every now and then to glance at Leo, who was lounging on his bed playing on his phone. He happened to be looking at her. When their eyes met, he asked, "You haven't posted today's chapter yet?" "No. We were out shopping all afternoon, and then we were just sitting on the couch on our phones." "I haven't had any time to write," she said, sighing. "Besides, I've hit a wall lately." She crawled onto the bed and gently rested her head on his stomach. Leo stroked her hair. Why the writer's block? I don't know, Julianne said, half joking. Maybe life's been too good recently. I've lost my motivation to write. Leo gently squeezed her cheek and looked down in her eyes. What kind of talk is that? You promised me you'd become a great author. You're just getting started and you're already out of motivation. My book is almost at 500,000 words, but the numbers are terrible. Before she could finish, Leo cut her off. What makes a book's numbers good? Julianne thought for a moment. Well, at least a few 100,000 readers, I guess. That would be a good book, right? But you're a new writer. For your first time, you're doing great, Leo said with a soft sigh. You've only been writing for 2 months, and you're already earning an income. Do you know how many new authors write for half a year and don't make as much as you? I know, but the words were on the tip of her tongue, but she swallowed them back down. Leo seemed to sense something was on her mind. But what? Nothing. It's nothing. Julianne, my great author, you're going to be famous one day. You can't give up over a small setback, Leo said, leaning down to kiss her on the side of her forehead. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you can't become a great writer overnight. You got this. Julianne looked in his eyes and asked seriously, is there enough time? What do you mean, is there enough time? Leo didn't understand her question. He stroked her hair and smiled. As long as you keep at it, you'll succeed. Writing is a war of attrition. If you can stick it out and outlast everyone else, you'll definitely become a great author. Okay, yeah, she said, her voice a little stronger. Encouraged by Leo, Julianne climbed off the bed, sat back down at her computer, and started typing. 3 hours flew by, and she finished her chapter for the day. After uploading it, she leaned back in her chair, completely drained, her eyes staring blankly at the screen. She wasn't thinking about anything in particular. Only Leo knew. She wasn't thinking at all. She was just zoned out. He did the same thing after he finished writing. He'd just sit there for a while, his mind completely empty, not wanting to think or do anything. Writing was exhausting. Leo got up, walked over to where Julianne was staring into space, and gently squeezed her shoulders. She tilted her head back to look up at him, her long hair draping over his hands and wrists. You worked hard. Let me give you a massage to help you relax, he said, kneading her tense shoulders and neck. Lily is the best, Julianne purred, beaming up at him. Her smile was so adorable that Leo couldn't resist. He leaned down and kissed her on the lips. He continued massaging her shoulders until his own hands started to ache. Let me get your shoulders now, Julianne offered. No, it's fine. I didn't write anything. I'm not tired. Hey, I said I'll do it, so just sit down, she insisted, getting up and giving him the chair. Julianne's hands weren't as strong as his, and they were small. He barely felt anything as she kneaded his shoulders. If he had a choice, he'd much rather have her walk on his back in a pair of black stockings. Of course, he would never dare say that out loud, or she'd pinch his side again. But now that he thought about it, she had promised him. If he placed in the top 10 in his class on the last exams, she would do it. It had been days since the exams ended, but the class rankings still weren't posted on the student portal. Some professor must be slacking off on grading. Julianne, Leo said, tilting his head back to look at her, just as she had done moments before. She murmured, looking down at him. What's up? Are you staying with me tonight? I'll think about it, she replied, her cheeks turning a faint shade of pink. Leo grabbed her wrist. What's there to think about? No thinking aloud. Well, I need a reason to stay in your room, don't I? Leo answered immediately. The reason is that I'm afraid of the dark. If you don't stay with me, I won't be able to sleep. Julianne pretended to consider this very seriously for a few seconds, then nodded. All right, since you're so afraid of the dark, I suppose I could do you the favor of staying with you tonight. Just tonight. What else? How long did you want? I want you to stay with me every night. Nope, you're too greedy. We're not even married yet, Julianne said, turning and walking into the en-suite bathroom to get ready for bed. Leo followed close behind. Then let's get married soon. Julianne immediately shot him down. No way. I want to date for a couple more years. Leo thought for a moment. We could get married and then date. Julianne burst out laughing. Why don't you just say we should have a baby and then date? That won't work. If we have a kid, we won't have any time to date. All right, enough with the clever remarks. Come on, time to brush your teeth. Yes, ma'am. Babe, you wanted to put the toothpaste on for you. No, thanks, I can do it myself. Don't be so formal with me. We're buddies. Get out of here. Who's your buddy? I'm your girlfriend. On New Year's Eve, Clara was up at the crack of dawn to start preparing the big holiday dinner. It was the first time she was celebrating with Leo's family, so she was taking it very seriously. Julianne woke up around 8. Leo was still snoring beside her, so she tiptoed out of bed without disturbing him. After washing up, she went downstairs to the kitchen to help her mother. It was a major holiday, so the nurses who had been looking after Clara were all home with their families. Leo hadn't been able to hire a new housekeeper or cook yet, which was why Clara was in the kitchen alone. As she chopped vegetables, Clara asked, "Why are you up so early?" "I went to bed early last night, so I woke up early," Julianne replied, her head down as she meticulously separated lettuce leaves, washing away any hidden grit. She worked efficiently, washing a large bunch in moments and stacking the clean leaves neatly in a colander to drain. It was clear she'd done this plenty of times before. After a moment of silence, Clara asked suddenly, "You stayed in Leo's room last night, didn't you?" Yeah," Julianne stammered, feeling a jolt of anxiety. Even though her mother had met Leo's parents and had no objections to their relationship, she always got nervous whenever her mom asked about them. Maybe it was a deeply ingrained habit from her childhood, when teachers and parents relentlessly warned against dating too early. It was a fear that lingered even after she was grown, a fear of her parents finding out she was in love. Her voice dropped a little. "He's afraid of the dark. He can't sleep alone, so he insisted I stay with him." "I see," Clara said simply, and left it at that. Julianne breathed a sigh of relief. But just as she relaxed, she heard her mother say quietly, "You young people need to be careful. Use protection and practice some self-control." Julianne's face flushed crimson. She looked down, mortified, and mumbled, "We just cuddled and slept last night. We didn't do anything." "Oh." Now it was Clara's turn to be embarrassed. Her voice also became much softer. "Well, in the future, just remember to be safe." A dead silence fell over the kitchen. The air itself felt awkward. Julianne didn't know what to do with her hands, swishing them through the water in the sink for a long moment before finally managing in, "Okay, right? If there's nothing else, I'm gonna go watch some TV." Clara felt the awkwardness too. Go on. I can handle things in here." Julianne scurried out of the kitchen. A few minutes later, Clara emerged with breakfast for two. "Go wake Leo up. He should eat something before going back to sleep." "Okay." Julianne was about to head upstairs when Leo appeared at the top of the landing. "Morning, babe," he said with a yawn as he came downstairs. He had woken up not long after Julianne, but he'd been too comfortable to get out of bed, choosing instead to lie there and scroll through his phone. A winter morning's bed held a special kind of magic that was impossible to escape. He had planned to stay there until lunch, but his stomach had started to hurt from hunger. After breakfast, the two of them sat on the couch like lumps, occasionally wandering into the kitchen to offer help, only to be shooed out by Clara, who would always say, "Go on, you two go have fun. I've got this." With nothing to do, they watched some TV. Suddenly, Leo remembered they hadn't put up any holiday decorations. He dug out the calligraphy supplies they'd bought the day before and spread the red cardstock on the floor. Julianne watched him, curious. "You just want to write on the floor?" "Yeah, why? Won't that be hard?" "Maybe you should use the table." "It's fine. It's all the same to me," Leo said with a wave of his hand. He picked up a brush, dipped it in ink, and did a few practice strokes on a piece of scrap paper. It had been a while. Once he felt comfortable, he began to write on the red cards. On one, peace and prosperity. On another, health and happiness. And for the banner over the door, Happy New Year. "Wow," Julianne gasped from behind him. "That's not bad. Your handwriting is beautiful." Leo, not one for false modesty, nodded in satisfaction. "Of course. I'm a professional. You're not even a little bit humble," Julianne said, poking his nose. "Hey," he said with a grin, "you're the one complimenting me. Why should I be humble?" He had practiced calligraphy for years. What was the point if he couldn't show it off? After the ink dried, Leo said, "Take these to the front door and wait for me. I'm going to the utility closet to get the ladder." "Got it. Oh, and don't forget the reeds from the bag." "I know, I'm not an idiot." The construction company had left a ladder behind after the renovation. Leo figured it would come in handy, so he'd paid them $200 to leave it. He hadn't expected to use it so soon. He set up the ladder, took the first sign, and positioned it on the right side of the doorframe. "Is it straight?" he called down. Julianne squinted. "A little higher on the right." "How about now?" "Perfect, that's it." A few minutes later, the signs and reeds were all in place. Just then, Charles and Michelle Miller arrived, parking their car in the driveway and walking over. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, good morning," Julianne said sweetly. Michelle beamed at her. "Julianne, honey, you look so lovely today." Charles smiled faintly. "Good morning." His eyes fell on the handwritten signs. "Peace and prosperity. Happy New Year." "Very nice." He adjusted his glasses, nodding with approval. "Whose Spencerian script is this?" "Your son, of course." Leo slung an arm around his father's neck. "What do you think, Dad? Not bad for your boy, huh?" That's my son," Charles said, smiling at Leo. "When did you learn to do this, kid?" "I had no idea." You're always so busy making money. You never pay attention to your son. That's why. Michelle said, playfully swatting her husband's head. She turned to Leo. Right, honey? Leo nodded emphatically. Exactly. Mom's right. You never care about my daily life, Dad. Charles nodded, a look of mock remorse on his face. You're right, son. My mistake. As compensation, I'll add a 0 to your allowance next month. Standing off to the side, Julianne listened to Charles's casual extravagance and trembled, not daring to speak. Do rich people just add a 0 to their kids' allowance? She thought. No wonder Leo bought me a $50 million house without blinking. It really was just his pocket money. Clara's New Year's meal was a magnificent feast. In just one morning, she had single-handedly prepared a table overflowing with dishes, each one a masterpiece of color, aroma, and flavor that could rival any top chefs. Charles and Michelle couldn't stop praising her cooking. Michelle was so impressed, she even tried to get Clara to come to Alleian Estates that afternoon to guide their own chefs in preparing the evening's dinner. But Clara humbly declined. You're too kind, Michelle. My simple skills are nothing. How could I presume to tell professional chefs how to cook? Clara was older than Michelle, and years of hard labor made her look it, so she called Michelle by her first name with a familiar affection. In turn, Michelle called her Clara. Clara, don't say that. This food is truly delicious, exactly to my taste. Especially this mushroom and wild rice soup. It tastes just like my mother used to make. I haven't tasted anything like this in years. It's so nostalgic, Michelle said, taking another sip from her bowl. A faint blush appeared on her cheeks, and her lips curved into a wistful smile. Clara beamed. She turned to Charles, who was silently devouring his food. And how about you, Charles? Is the food to your liking? Charles didn't answer. He was completely engrossed in the food. Braised short ribs, honey-glazed ham, peel-and-eat shrimp, savory meatballs, beef stew. The table was a paradise of all his favorite dishes. He was too busy to notice anything else, not even hearing Clara speaking to him. Leo watched his occasionally unreliable father and covered his face, half amused and half exasperated. He patted his dad's back. Still eating? The bill's coming for you. Huh. Charles looked up and saw Michelle's slightly annoyed expression. He gave a sheepish grin. The food was just too good. I got carried away. My apologies. He raised his wine glass and a toast to Clara and downed it in one go. Clara raised her half-full glass of juice in return. Not at all. Not at all. If you like it, please eat more. Don't be polite. She only took a small sip. She didn't dare drink too much of the cold beverage, worried it would be bad for her health. She was also avoiding spicy foods, so she could only eat the milder dishes on the table. Michelle leaned over and whispered to Charles, You've been drinking. How are we getting home? It was a holiday, so Charles had given his driver the day off. He had driven them there himself. Our son is here, isn't he? Charles patted Leo's shoulder. He hasn't been drinking. With him driving, what's there to worry about? You're less reliable than he is, Michelle muttered, poking him gently in the shoulder. After lunch, Charles and Michelle were invited by Clara into the living room for tea and conversation. Julianne dutifully began clearing the table, and Leo joined in to help. Their parents watched them, their eyes filled with pride. Clara, Michelle said, your Julianne is so sensible and well-behaved. Charles and I are both so fond of her. Oh, you're too kind, Clara said with a sigh. Jules is a good girl who had the bad luck of having a mother like me who couldn't provide for her. She's suffered so much over the years. I'm just glad she doesn't blame me. Don't think that way. In your situation, you still managed to raise such an outstanding young woman. Julianne has every reason to be grateful to you. Why would she ever blame you? With the two women chatting, Charles had little to add. He sat quietly, sipping his tea. It was only when the conversation turned to the children's marriage that he spoke up. Clara, the wedding can wait until after graduation, but the engagement, perhaps we should. Leo and Julianne quickly cleared the table, tossing a large basin of dirty dishes into the dishwasher. How do you use this thing? Do you know? Julianne crouched in front of the machine, staring at the array of buttons, afraid to press the wrong one. She looked up at Leo. I have no idea, Leo admitted, leaning down to inspect the control panel. He randomly pressed a couple of buttons. You don't know, and you're still pressing things? What if you break it? It's fine. If it breaks, we'll just get a new one. After fiddling with it for a few moments, Leo figured it out. It worked pretty much like a washing machine. It looked complicated, but all you had to do was pick a cycle and hit start. As the dishwasher started to fill with water, Julianne marveled. Technology really has changed our lives. We don't even have to wash dishes by hand anymore. Exactly, Leo said, still squatting beside her. So next time someone tries to stir up trouble between us by asking who does the dishes in our house, you could just tell them who washes dishes by hand these days. Don't tell me you can't even afford a dishwasher. Haha. Who would use a question like that to cause problems in a relationship? Oh, people do. And it's an incredibly effective question. You've been watching too many TikToks. Fine, I won't argue with you. Let's go have some tea. Hey, wait for me. Julianne stood up and walked out of the kitchen, with Leo scrambling to follow. They hadn't even reached the living room when they heard their parents discussing their future. Clara, let's just keep things simple. We don't have many relatives to invite on our side. Michelle, no, Clara, listen to me. Julianne is marrying into our family. We can't let her be slighted. The wedding must be a grand affair. Charles, that's right. You only get married once in your life. We can't do it halfway. Dad, Mom, Clara, what are you all talking about? As Leo and Julianne approached, the three of them immediately fell silent. Nothing, Michelle said, waving her hand dismissively. We were just discussing. Tea with Clara. Clara nodded along. Yes. Charles held up his teacup. This tea. It's really tea. He then chugged the hot liquid, immediately spitting it into the nearby trash can because it was scalding. He then started frantically wiping the table where he'd spilled. As they say, when people are embarrassed, they pretend to be very busy. Leo looked at his father, speechless. After a few seconds, he finally said, You were discussing mine and Jules's wedding, weren't you? Charles looked surprised. How did you know? You really are my son, just as smart as I was. You must have at least 1/10 of my intelligence. What does being smart have to do with it? Leo said, completely exasperated. If you guys had been any louder, we would have heard you from the kitchen. Getting married was still a bit premature for two people who had just started their freshman year of college, but an engagement was something they could certainly start planning. Leo and Julianne weren't opposed to the idea, though it was unlikely to happen this year with nothing prepared. The plan was to get engaged during their sophomore year, meaning next year. Engaged as sophomores, planning the wedding as juniors, and getting married right after graduation. At first, they thought their parents were being too hasty, but when laid out like that, it actually sounded pretty good. So they agreed. Of course, the engagement details were for their parents to handle. They weren't interested in the stress of planning. After sitting in the living room and drinking tea for a while, Charles's buzz had mostly worn off. They all gathered their things and prepared to head over to Alleian Estates. The two properties weren't far apart, just a 10-minute drive. Leo drove, with Julianne in the passenger seat and their parents in the back. It didn't take long to reach the main gate of Alleian Estates. From the gate to Villa No. 1 was another short drive of 3 to 5 minutes. The estate was just that massive. It would take at least half an hour to walk briskly around the central lake. Leo had never tried, so he didn't know for sure. To acquire such a large plot of land for development in the city center, Charles must have had considerable influence back in the day. Now, new high-rise construction was forbidden in Ethelberg's inner ring, and getting approval for even a private residence was nearly impossible. As a result, property values in Alleian Estates continued to skyrocket. Ordinary people couldn't even dream of buying a house here. So, the villa Leo had bought for Julianne was just an ordinary luxury home that anyone with enough money could buy. A villa in Alleian Estates, however, was a true symbol of class. Besides, even if the inner ring was open to developers again, no one could replicate Alleian Estates. Its construction was to the highest possible standard. The cost in resources and capital to build the Celestine Hotel on the lake's central island alone was astronomical. In all of Ethelberg City, if the Celestine Hotel ranked second, no other hotel would dare claim first. That was why, in the novel, the main characters held their wedding there at the very end. No, that wasn't quite right. To be precise, it was to highlight the sheer prestige of their wedding that Leo had created a place like the Celestine Hotel in the first place. What had been a casual detail he'd written had now become his greatest asset. As the car pulled up to the villa's gate, the butler rushed out to open it personally, welcoming them home. Once in the courtyard, Leo casually parked the car on the lawn, tossed the keys to the butler, and helped his slightly tipsy father into the house. Charles waved him off. I'm fine, son. Your old man's not drunk. I don't need help. You're not drunk. Really, I'm not. Leo held up one finger. Then what's this? Charles pointed at it. That's one. Hey, why'd you hit me? His answer was met with a light tap on the forehead from Leo's finger. Leo grinned. It's one finger. You can't even recognize a finger, and you say you're not drunk. Wait, that's how this works. Charles stared at Leo, bewildered. Okay, test me again. I'll forget this time. Leo held up 2 fingers. How many? That's 2 fingers. I'm right, aren't I? Charles looked at Leo, pleased with himself. Unsurprisingly, his head was tapped again. Hey, why'd you hit me again? It's a peace sign, you goof. You're so drunk you're talking nonsense. Wait, you? Three large question marks appeared over Charles's head. After a 2-second delay, he realized he'd been had and smacked Leo on the head. You little brat. How dare you prank your old man? Leo shielded his head, admitting defeat. Hey, stop hitting me, Dad. I was just kidding. The three women following behind them couldn't help but laugh. A string of joyful chuckles echoed through the courtyard. Julianne watched the fun, brotherly interaction between Leo and his father and felt a pang of envy. If I had grown up in a family like this, she wondered, would I have turned out as great as Leo? In fact, it was a question Leo had asked himself many years ago. Though not drunk, Charles was a bit drowsy, so he went upstairs for a nap as soon as they arrived. Michelle insisted on dragging Clara to the kitchen to supervise the preparation of the New Year's Eve dinner, so the two of them headed straight there. In the villa's spacious, brightly lit kitchen, several top chefs, hired at great expense, were methodically preparing the evening's feast. They worked with focused, meticulous precision, each movement skilled and fluid, as if engaged in an artistic creation. Clara felt she wasn't professional enough to give these chefs any pointers, afraid she would offend them. But her worries were completely unfounded. With the salaries the Millers paid, no chef would dare show an ounce of disrespect to Clara. They wouldn't just let her stand there and supervise. They would have happily let her ride on their shoulders and give instructions with a smile. In the living room, only Leo and Julianne were left with nothing to do. They scrolled on their phones for a bit. Then, as if remembering something, Leo waved the butler over. Is the stuff I asked for ready? The butler replied immediately. Rest assured, young master. It's been prepared for some time. Okay, show me. Yes, sir. This way. Seeing Leo get up, Julianne stood as well, her face full of curiosity. What is it? Why so mysterious? It's definitely something good, Leo said with a wicked grin. It's New Year's Eve. I'm going to take you out for a battle that will last all night. A battle all night. Leo's expression, combined with his words, made Julianne feel like something was off. She had gotten the wrong idea. Yeah, we're not sleeping tonight. I'm going to show you a good time. And not sleeping? Wouldn't that kill someone? No way. How could it kill someone? It's perfectly safe. As safe. Listening to Leo, Julianne muttered to herself. He didn't buy a whole case of fireworks. Yep. With this many fireworks, we should be able to last all night. Leo gazed at the storeroom packed to the ceiling with fireworks, thinking he would invite his friends to find a place where they could set them off and have a blast all night long. Your expression is a little weird, Leo said, turning his head to see Julianne's strange look. You don't like fireworks? I do. Fireworks. Of course I like fireworks. Fireworks are great. We have to set them off to get that holiday spirit. After Julianne had inspected the fireworks, Leo sent a picture to Damen. Leo, bro, tonight I'm going to help you make up for a childhood deprived of fireworks. The message went out, but Damen didn't reply for a long time. Leo had no idea what he was up to. At the Sterling estate, a short while ago, Damen had emerged for his father's study, his face dark. According to Sterling family tradition, the New Year's family banquet was for family members only, but Donovan wanted to invite the Rose family to join them. So, he had called his son in to discuss the matter. Of course, it wasn't just about dinner. Donovan also hoped that, in front of his uncles Marcus and Alistair, Damen would get engaged to Serafina that very night. Damen, naturally, didn't want to move so fast. He and Serafina had only been dating for less than 4 months. Although he knew she was his fiancée and that they would eventually marry, he didn't want to get engaged so soon. Damen felt that as soon as they were engaged, everything would become a race toward marriage, children, and business. The love would no longer feel pure, but rather like a forced seedling. It might still bear fruit, but a ripened fruit would never be as sweet as one that grew naturally. This was not the kind of love he wanted. His first 20 years had been lived according to a script. He didn't want to lose control over the rhythm of his own relationship. He wanted to enjoy a few wonderful years of campus romance with Serafina. When the feelings were right, the next step would come naturally. So, when his father proposed the idea, he refused without hesitation. For this, the father and son had a massive argument in the study that lasted nearly an hour. It ended, as it always did, with Damien's defeat. He could never win against his father. What Damen didn't know was that his father had his own agenda. Marcus had been getting bolder lately, meddling in company affairs, and even daring to hold private meetings with the board's old guard without his approval. Having grown up together, Donovan knew his brother wasn't a fool. If Marcus was openly defying him now, it meant he had powerful backing. Donovan couldn't figure out his opponent's hand, so he had to resort to any means necessary to strengthen his own to prevent a hostile takeover. That was why he had sent the gift to the Cole patriarch's birthday banquet to deliberately stir up trouble between the Cole family and Marcus. And it had worked. The day after the banquet, he had received a return gift from Arthur Cole himself. It was another tortoise statue, not gold, but made of a special alloy developed and produced by the Cole family's company. It wasn't a surrender from the Cole family, but from Arthur Cole personally. That was enough. This move seemed to have rattled Marcus. Upon hearing what had happened, Marcus threw all decorum to the wind and stormed into Donovan's office. The two had a huge fight, and Marcus officially declared war on his older brother. Seeing his cornered brother, Donovan wasn't scared. He wasn't afraid of his opponent getting desperate. The more desperate Marcus became, the more likely he was to make a mistake. All Donovan had to do was wait for Marcus to slip up, then deliver the final blow. But he couldn't wait that long. He feared that delays would bring new complications. That's why he wanted his son to get engaged to Serafina tonight. An engagement with the Rose family would not only provoke Marcus into making a mistake sooner, but also solidify his own shareholdings, giving him another card to play. Honestly, if it weren't for the rules set by the old man, Donovan would have had his son marry Serafina tonight. He thought his plan would go smoothly, but Damien had refused and even argued with him. In the study, Donovan leaned back in his leather chair, eyes closed. He massaged his temples with his left hand and tapped on the desk with his right. His chest rose and fell heavily. From his ragged breathing, it was clear he was furious. After a while, Donovan opened his eyes and called Serafina's father, Mr. Rose. Not long after the call ended, Serafina also emerged from her father's study, her eyes red and puffy. She threw open the front door and ran out of the house. No doubt, she had had a fight with her father for much the same reason as Damien. When it came to their relationship, neither of them wanted to compromise or bow to their parents' commands. They were too much alike, which was why they were drawn to each other. After running away from home, Serafina called Damien. He didn't want to stay at home either. Hearing the news, he immediately got in his car to pick her up. Tonight's New Year's Eve dinner was one they were destined not to share with their families. But it didn't matter. Damien had money. He could take Serafina out for a lavish meal. Who said no restaurants were open on New Year's Eve? In a city as vast as Ethelberg, you could always find a place to eat. Besides, you didn't have to spend the holidays with your parents. As long as the person you loved was by your side, wasn't every day a beautiful one? With this thought, the two rebellious children ran away from home on New Year's Eve. Before leaving, of course, they had to fill up the gas tank. Damien's sports car chewed through fuel in the city. He heard it could empty a 100-liter tank in 10 minutes at top speed, though he'd never tried. All full, sir. How would you like to pay? Card, Damien said, pulling a bank card from his wallet. Okay. Beep, beep, beep. I'm sorry, sir. Your card has been declined due to insufficient funds. What? Are you kidding me? My card has insufficient funds. Damien pointed at his own face as if he'd just heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. He confidently pulled out another card. Beep, beep, beep. I'm sorry, sir. This one is also declined for insufficient funds. What the? Insufficient funds? Damien stared, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. His card, Damien Sterling's card, could have insufficient funds? That was, without a doubt, the most absurd thing he had heard in his entire life. All right, I'll just Venmo you, Damien said, pulling out his phone. The moment he scanned the QR code, a notification popped up on his screen. Account funds are currently under review and have been frozen. Seeing the message, Damien was stunned speechless. Watching his expression, Serafina seemed to guess what was happening. She immediately took out her phone. Let me pay. Beep, beep, beep. What? My card has insufficient funds, too? Hearing the attendant, Serafina immediately opened her payment app. Sure enough, when she tried to pay, it also showed her funds had been frozen. So, how are you two going to pay? The line of cars waiting to fuel up was starting to back up onto the main road. The gas station attendant was getting anxious. Maybe cash, she suggested quietly. The reminder made Damien remember the wad of cash he kept in his wallet for emergencies. If he had known this day would come, he would have stuffed tens of thousands in there. He had $1,200 in cash. The gas was $1,000, leaving him with $200. After paying, Damien sped away from the station. In the passenger seat, Serafina asked anxiously, "Both our accounts are frozen. What do we do now?" "It's fine, not a big deal," Damien said with a wave of his hand. "In Ethelberg City, my face is all I need." "I'm very sorry, Mr. Sterling, but your father has given explicit instructions. All restaurants under the Sterling Group are not permitted to serve you or your guests tonight." Damn it. Standing at the restaurant entrance, Damien choked back his anger, finally managing a single curse. He kicked over a ceramic vase, nearly half his height. That was part of the decor. Crash. The vase shattered into a million pieces. The hostesses and the lobby manager all bowed their heads, trembling, too scared to speak. Damen grabbed Serafina's hand and stormed out of his family's hotel without a second glance. Vase, does anyone have a peanut for me? I need legal aid. Back in the car, just as Serafina was about to comfort him, Damen spoke first, comforting her instead. It's okay, Serafina. We'll just find another restaurant. It's not like this is the only one in Ethelberg, right? And Machem. Serafina squeezed his hand and nodded, her voice gentle. It's okay. Don't be too upset. I'm not. I'm just a little. Damen had been a young master since birth, living a life of luxury for over 20 years. Today, suddenly penniless and stripped of his status, the whiplash felt no different from jumping off a building. It was so damn frustrating. Why don't you pick a restaurant? Miller messaged me this afternoon. I just remembered I forgot to check it. I'll reply to him now. Okay. Serafina nodded obediently and started searching for restaurants. Damen immediately pulled out his phone and messaged Leo. Damen, Miller, forget about the fireworks for a second. Lend me some money. It's an emergency. Whoa. Damen Sterling is asking me for money? I never thought I'd see the day. Leo, who had just finished his New Year's Eve dinner and was taking a walk in the yard with Julianne, burst out laughing when he saw the message. Julianne frowned, confused. He's so rich. Why would he need to borrow money from you? Is he asking for like a few $100 million? TCH. Her words immediately killed Leo's good mood. He was rich, but not rich enough to casually lend Damen a few $100 million. He quickly messaged back. Leo, how much do you need? Damen, 5,000. The user has retracted a message. Damen, 50,000. Got it. Leo stared at the message, exasperated. Leo, you need to borrow 50 grand from me? Are you messing with me? It's New Year's, not April Fool's. Your joke isn't funny. Leo, oh, I get it. You're not Damen Sterling. You must be a scammer who hacked his account, right? You have the nerve to try and scam me? F you, you piece of SH. I'm reporting you. Damen, no, Miller, it's really me. He followed up with a 10-second video. It was clearly filmed on the spot. He showed his face, with Serafina in the passenger seat. He even pointed the camera at his watch to prove the time and date. Another message followed. I had a fight with my dad today. He froze all my accounts. Serafina's family froze hers too. We're trying to find a restaurant to eat at, but I'm afraid we won't have enough to pay. Leo, history really does repeat itself. All right, hold on. Without another word, Leo opened his payment app to send Damen 100,000, but a notification popped up. This user's account is flagged for risk. The transaction cannot be completed. Leo screenshotted the message and sent it to Damen. Damen had expected as much, but seeing the proof, he finally lost all hope. Damen, fine. The universe wants me to suffer. Leo, how about this? You and your girlfriend go eat. Put on my tab. He then sent Damen a string of numbers. Leo, this card should have a few million on it. I'm not sure of the exact amount. Just use it. Damen, Miller, for this kindness, I will repay you tenfold in the future. Leo, cut the crap. Go eat. When you're done, I'm taking you to set off some fireworks. Damen, okay. With Leo backing him, Damien's confidence returned. He took his girlfriend to a 5-star restaurant, mainly because it was the only one nearby that wasn't owned by his family. Actually, Leo had considered inviting Damen to his house. They had a ton of leftovers from dinner that would otherwise go to waste. But on second thought, it seemed inappropriate to invite the great Damen Sterling and his girlfriend over to eat leftovers on New Year's Eve. And even if they hadn't eaten yet, Damen had run away after a huge fight with his father. Bringing him home would be a direct challenge to Donovan Sterling, something Charles would surely not approve of. Just as Leo was thinking, his phone buzzed. It was a text alert from his bank. He looked at the message and laughed. $17,000 for one meal? This kid really doesn't hold back. Why did he only borrow that much? Julianne had been around Leo for so long that she was starting to think like him, casually remarking that $17,000 for a meal was only that much. The moment she said it, she surprised herself. Leo shrugged. I don't know. Maybe because it's not his money. He's trying to be frugal. Oh, Julianne didn't care about that. She asked, when are we going to set off the fireworks? You want to play with fireworks? I can take you right now. We're not waiting for them. Screw them. They're not worthy of making my girl wait. With the butler's help, Leo loaded all the fireworks in a car. The vehicle was so packed that a single stray spark could have blown the whole thing sky high. Of course, that would never happen because Leo didn't smoke. Besides, who would be stupid enough to play with fire in a car full of explosives? The butler closed the trunk and waved. Drive safely, young master. Will do. You head back inside, Leo said with a nod, then drove away. Watching the car's taillights disappear, the butler smiled with satisfaction. The young master is all grown up. It's about time he got married. Setting off fireworks was, of course, forbidden in the city center. Leo wasn't familiar with the suburbs and didn't know where it would be allowed. He figured, if worst came to worst, they could just find a small riverbank somewhere. Suddenly, Julianne spoke up. Hey, let's drive toward my old neighborhood, the projects. Can we set off fireworks there? Leo asked, curious. Julianne nodded. Yeah, there's a little plaza there. During the holidays, all the kids set off fireworks. One year, I took Susie there to play. It's pretty empty, and no one bothers you. That makes sense. It's New Year's. No one's going to care about that stuff. Even though it was technically banned in the city, no one would bother you for setting off a few at midnight, as long as it was in an open area and done safely. It was the holidays, after all. You had to have some fireworks, or it just didn't feel right. With a destination in mind, Leo picked up the pace. About 10 minutes later, the car pulled up to the plaza Julianne had described. It was less a plaza and more a concrete wasteland. There wasn't a single plant in sight, just a barren, empty lot. This is the plaza? Leo asked, surprised. Yep, Julianne nodded. They were supposed to build a park here, but the project stalled halfway through, and it ended up like this. She pointed at the empty space, a hint of resignation in her eyes. It feels like this place has been cursed since I was a kid. Developers came and went, leaving one abandoned building after another. It just never took off. They couldn't even finish a simple plaza. And it's not even that far from the city. Transportation is decent. The people who live here say the area has bad feng shui. That's why it can't be developed. Maybe it's just not its time yet, Leo said, scratching his head. He could barely look Julianne in the eye. The reason the projects had never developed was simply because the plot of his novel required it. If there was a curse, it was the author's curse. You're probably right, Julianne said with a nod. The city is already leading a redevelopment plan for this area. It'll probably be demolished next year. In a few years, it might become a new, bustling commercial district. Leo wrapped an arm around Julianne's shoulders, pulling her close. If you like this place so much, I can buy it for you. It's yours. Julianne shook her head. No, thank you, my dear billionaire. Please don't waste your family's fortune like that. It's fine. Money is the one thing my family has plenty of. I can't spend it all. Oh, stop bragging, Julianne said, smiling as she poked his forehead. A group of kids was playing with firecrackers in the empty lot, watched over by a few adults. They were all residents of the projects. Leo's luxury car parked on the edge of the lot drew the attention of many of the adults. But when he and Julianne opened the trunk and began unloading an entire arsenal of fireworks, they drew the attention of all the children. One brave little boy walked right up to them. Miss, you bought a lot of firecrackers. Sure did. You want to play? Leo pulled out a brick of Black Cat firecrackers, broke off 2 packs, and offered them to the boy. The boy waved his hands frantically. No, that's okay. My dad already bought me some. Though he politely refused, Julianne could see the longing for those 2 packs in his eyes, just like when she was a little girl at this very plaza, politely refusing a sparkler offered by an older girl. Leo pressed the firecrackers into the boy's hands. It's fine, take them. No, really, thank you, mister. My dad will get mad at me, the boy said, glancing back at a man standing a short distance away. The man was watching them, his eyes filled with suspicion, which made sense, as they were strangers. Leo smiled. It's okay. Take them over to your dad. If he says you can't have them, you could just bring them back. Well, okay then. The boy nodded and took the firecrackers. A few moments later, the boy returned with his father. The suspicion in the man's eyes had faded, replaced by a smile. How much for these 2 packs? I'll buy them. He had seen all the fireworks and assumed they were here to sell them. Leo waved his hand. No need. We bought a lot, more than we can play with in one night. These are for the kids to enjoy. Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Don't mention it. Hearing that Leo and Julianne were giving away firecrackers, a few more mischievous boys ran over to ask for some. Leo gave them away freely, 1 pack per person. When girls came over, Julianne would give them the sparkly, magical-looking sparklers. Before they had even started playing themselves, they had given away more than a dozen boxes of fireworks. Just as Leo had said, they had too many to use in one night, so giving some of the kids was no big deal. Disclaimer, do not attempt this in real life. If a bratty kid gets hurt playing with fireworks, their parents will come looking for you. The plaza, once filled with kids who could only watch others play, was now full of children with their own fireworks. They played with boundless energy, their young, clear laughter echoing everywhere. Lily, Julianne said, why do you think watching them have so much fun with firecrackers makes me even happier than playing with them myself? Leo gazed at the group of children and smiled faintly. Maybe because you see a part of your childhood self in them. You guessed it. Are you a mind reader? You know it. Ha ha ha. As they were laughing, a girl walked over. Hey, Jules. Leo. Oh, Susie. Susie, are you here by yourself? Julianne asked, pleasantly surprised to see her friend standing there. Yeah, my mom and dad are at home doing dishes, but they're coming to set off fireworks in a bit, Susie said, pointing to the group of kids behind her. My neighbor just told me some people were giving out fireworks over here, so she insisted I come get some too. Julianne gestured to the pile of fireworks on the ground. There you go. Take whatever you want. Your brother Leo bought them all. Wow, Susie exclaimed. Why did you two buy so many? Julianne just smiled and nodded. 2 more friends are coming to play with us in a little bit. Leo had already sent the location to Damen. They had finished dinner and were on their way. Oh, okay, Susie said. You want to join us? Julianne invited. Susie quickly waved her hands. I shouldn't. You guys bought all of this. Oh, don't worry about it. Julianne insisted, taking Susie's hand. Play with us. Leo chimed in. Yeah, come on. We bought them to be used. Under their enthusiastic invitation, Susie couldn't refuse and joined their New Year's Eve fireworks party. Soon after, Damien's sleek sports car pulled up to the rundown plaza. Seeing the pathetic little square, he was about to complain. Setting off fireworks in a place like this? How boring. It's so beneath my status. But the words died on his lips when he remembered he was a broke loser who couldn't even scrape together $300. When they were alone for a moment, Leo pulled Damen aside. How did your dad freeze your accounts? Don't even talk about it, Damen said with a bitter smile. My dad wanted me and Serafina to get engaged tonight. Leo's brow furrowed. Tonight? What? It's because of all that stupid family drama, of course. Damen pouted, his emotions written all over his face like a sulking child. Obviously said no. I think what my dad is doing is too rash. It's completely irresponsible toward my marriage and my relationship. So you had a huge fight with your dad, skipped New Year's dinner, and ran away from home. Yep. And then he cut off my cards. And your girlfriend, too. Pretty much. A pair of star-crossed lovers, Leo teased with a grin, but his mind was already racing, recalling the plot of his book. In the novel, Donovan's push for marriage was supposed to happen during their sophomore year, after they had been dating for over a year. At that point, Damen hadn't been against it. But now, it was happening a whole year early. Did this mean the story's pace was accelerating? Leo fell into deep thought. Lily. Julianne patted his shoulder forcefully. Huh? What? He snapped back to reality, looking at Julianne, who had appeared in front of him at some point. He asked blankly, what's wrong? What were you thinking about? Why weren't you listening to me? Leo gave a goofy laugh. I was thinking about whether I should use firecrackers to blow up some cow patties. Damen, standing nearby, scoffed. This is the projects, not a ranch. Where are you going to find cow patties to blow up? Since Damen had said what she was thinking, Julianne could only say with feigned annoyance, You're such a big dummy. Leo changed the subject. All right, enough of that. Let's go to the bridge and play with the Gatling guns. He pulled several massive Gatling-style fireworks from a pile and handed one to each of them. They took the fireworks to the small bridge next to the plaza and aimed them at the sky. Fwoosh, fwoosh, fwoosh. Boom, boom, boom. A row of blue-flamed Gatling fireworks unleashed a barrage into the sky. Leo's was the fastest and most intense, finishing in just a few moments. I'm talking about the firework, don't get any funny ideas. When his was done, he noticed Julianne's hadn't even been lit. He took out a lighter, ready to light the fuse for her, but she instinctively pulled away. Leo shouted over the noise, Why aren't you playing? The sound from the other 3 fireworks was deafening, so he had to raise his voice. Julianne shook her head and yelled back, I'm scared. Don't be scared. I'm right here. The world around them was a cacophony of explosions, but Julianne heard Leo's words with perfect clarity. Before she could refuse, he lit the fuse of the firework in her hand. He stuffed the lighter back in his pocket and moved behind her. By the time Julianne processed what he had said, his chest was gently pressed against her back, his large hands completely covering her smaller ones as they held the firework. In that instant, an overwhelming sense of security washed over her. Watching the blue flames shoot into the sky, Julianne was no longer afraid. In fact, she was smiling, happier than ever. Damen watched Leo's smooth, hug your girlfriend while setting off fireworks maneuver, his eyes wide with awe. Damn, he thought, you can do that? After the Gatling guns, Leo still wasn't satisfied. He went back and brought out 2 enormous, multi-shot firework cakes, placing them in the center of the plaza. He and Damen counted down from 3, each lit a fuse, and then ran. Whoosh, Two streaks of light shot across the inky black sky like meteors, then burst, scattering brilliant, dreamlike light. The colors intertwined into a vibrant tapestry, decorating the dark canvas with 1,000 glittering stars, as if it were a scene from a fairy tale. The beauty of fireworks was breathtaking, yet heartbreakingly brief. In a fleeting moment, they exhausted all their brilliance, then vanished without a trace. It seemed all beautiful things were like this, gone in a flash, leaving only a lingering afterimage that stayed in people's hearts forever. Julianne was mesmerized. By the time she came to her senses, the show was over. She turned to Leo, her face lit up with a smile. "Leo, I had so much fun tonight." She was so beautiful. At least in Leo's heart, no one could ever compare. He held her face in his hands and gave her a long, deep kiss. Damien whispered, "Seriously? Are they making out again?" Serafina replied, "I don't know. It just happened." Susie thought to herself, "It must be nice to be an adult. You can make out on the street, and nobody cares."